The first thing I noticed about the rooms my son had built for me was that they didn't smell like anyone yet. They smelled like primer, cut lumber, and the lemon cleaner Tessa used whenever she wanted a house to look as though nobody had ever eaten in it. I stood in the bedroom holding Paul's photograph against my chest. Ben had made the walnut frame with him 22 years earlier. It was heavier than it looked. The wall opposite the bed was empty, and afternoon light fell across it. "This could go there," I said, "or maybe on that shelf by the window." "Where do you think your father's photograph should stand?" Ben didn't even examine the wall. "It won't." I thought I had misheard him. "It won't what?" "It won't stand anywhere, Mom." Tessa stopped smoothing an invisible wrinkle from the new comforter. She looked at Ben, then at me, but Ben kept his eyes on the photograph. "We talked about this," he said. "You and I did not. I mean Tessa and me." That was when I understood that the blank walls weren't waiting for me. They had already been decided. 3 months earlier, Ben had come to my house with a moisture meter, a ladder, and enough concern to condemn a public building. He arrived on a Saturday morning while I was in the kitchen, trying to open a jar of raspberry preserves. I'd wrapped a dish towel around the lid and was considering violence when the back door opened. "Mom, if you're here to rob me, take the preserves first." Ben walked in carrying the moisture meter, like a television detective carrying a gun. At 42, he had Paul's broad shoulders and my unfortunate habit of narrowing one eye when he suspected nonsense. His hair had begun retreating at the temples, though he still wore it cropped so short that he could claim this was intentional. He took the jar from me, opened it, and set it down without comment. "That lid was defective," I said. "Of course." "What's that thing?" "A moisture meter." I was hoping it was a very disappointing birthday present. He smiled, but only briefly. Ben had been smiling in brief installments since Paul died. He walked toward the dining room, pressing the device against the wall beneath the window. It made a small beep. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means there's moisture. It's called weather, Ben. We have it here." He crouched beside the baseboard. "The gutter outside this wall is overflowing. Then I'll have someone clean it. I told you I'd do it last month. And I told you not to climb a ladder after you threw your back out, moving that ridiculous concrete fire pit. It's not ridiculous. It weighs as much as a Buick and produces 6 inches of flame." He stood up slowly, proving my point while pretending not to. "This house is too much for you." There it was. Not moisture, not gutters. The real inspection. I spread preserves on toast and leaned against the counter. The house and I have reached an understanding. I ignore its noises and it ignores mine. I'm serious. So am I. Last night, the pipes groaned, and I showed them the courtesy of not calling a plumber. Ben put the meter down. His concern could turn stern so quickly, it often felt like anger wearing a nicer shirt. "You nearly fell on the basement stairs. I missed one step. You landed on the furnace. I did not land on it." I greeted it abruptly. "Mom." I had a bruise. I'm 68, not made of spun sugar. He exhaled through his nose. Paul used to do the same thing when trying not to laugh during church. On Ben, it usually meant he was trying not to say something impatient. He'd begun talking about the ground floor of his house soon after the furnace incident. It had once been a recreation room, though I'd never seen anyone recreate in it. There was a faded couch, an exercise bicycle Tessa used to hang clean clothes on, and a sliding door opening onto the lower patio. Ben said he could turn it into a bedroom, sitting room, bathroom, and kitchenette. Private entrance. No stairs. Close enough for emergencies, separate enough for independence. The first time he suggested it, I told him I would rather move into a lighthouse. The second time, he brought floor plans. That Saturday, after measuring my walls and insulting my gutters, he spread those plans across the dining table. He had revised them. The sitting room now had built-in shelves. The bathroom had a wide shower with a bench that he repeatedly called tasteful, as if accessibility became less insulting when rendered in brushed nickel. "Tessa picked the tile," he said. "Then it's gray. It's called Riverstone. It's gray that went to college. That earned me another brief smile. He pointed to a small square near the kitchenette. "You could put your round table here. My table seats 6. You don't need seating for 6 every day. No one needs most things every day. That isn't why we have them." Ben's finger remained on the plan. We'd have dinner together. Every day? Not every day. Sunday. Maybe a couple nights during the week. So my table is too large, but I'm still cooking. I didn't say that. You said it with your eyebrows. He sat across from me. Behind him, Paul's photograph stood on the sideboard beside a ceramic bowl full of keys that opened things I no longer owned. The picture had been taken at his retirement dinner. He was turned halfway from the camera, laughing at something Caroline had said. No stiff shoulders, no polite smile. Just Paul caught being himself. Ben never looked toward it. "Do you like eating alone?" he asked. It was such a simple question that I couldn't find a clever answer fast enough. Most evenings, I ate at the small kitchen table with the radio on. Sometimes I made a proper dinner. Sometimes I ate crackers over the sink and told myself Paul would have admired the efficiency. I didn't mind being alone as much as Ben imagined, but there was a difference between solitude you chose and silence that arrived at 5:30 and sat across from you. "I manage," I said. "That wasn't what I asked. You sound like your father." Ben folded the corner of the floor plan inward, then flattened it again. "No, I don't." He left an hour later after cleaning the gutter, changing the furnace filter, and writing the name of a real estate agent on the back of an envelope. He placed it beside my telephone without mentioning it. For 2 days, I used the envelope as a coaster. On Tuesday, the agent called me. Her name was Sheila Grant, and she had the bright, respectful voice of a woman accustomed to discussing other people's endings as market opportunities. She said Ben had told her I might be considering my options. I said Ben often confused considering with surrendering. Still, I let her come. Sheila walked through the house without calling anything charming, which I appreciated. She noticed the original woodwork, the narrow upstairs closets, and the crack above the living room doorway that Paul had patched twice. She did not say the kitchen was dated, though her eyes rested on the yellow cabinet handles long enough to compose a speech. When she told me what the house might sell for, I laughed. She blinked. "Is that higher or lower than you expected? It's more than Paul paid for all 4 houses on this street. That was a different market. It was apparently a different planet." After she left, I walked from room to room. 36 years had worn paths that no buyer would notice. Paul's heel had nicked the baseboard near the front door the day we moved in. Caroline had once dropped an entire bowl of cranberry sauce on the dining room rug during her first Thanksgiving as an adult host, then cried as though she'd killed someone. Ben had made the walnut frame in the garage, emerging every 20 minutes with sawdust in his hair to ask whether I thought the corners were square. The house contained all of that, but it also contained a basement I had begun avoiding and an upstairs bathroom that felt farther away every winter. The back garden had gone from pleasure to accusation. Paul's workbench still stood in the garage exactly as he'd left it, because deciding what to do with a drawer full of bent screwdrivers felt more exhausting than lifting any of them. I called Caroline before I called Ben. She answered on the 4th ring. "Everything okay?" Why does everyone begin that way now? Because you don't call at 3 on a Wednesday to discuss television. I might. You hate everything I watch. You watch people buying beach houses they cannot afford, and then complaining about the countertops. They can afford them. That's why they're on the show. I sat on the stairs with the telephone against my ear. I'm thinking about selling. Caroline went quiet. She was 45 2 hours away and capable of turning silence into a full committee meeting. "Ben's idea?" she finally asked. "Does that matter? It matters if you want to do it or if he's wearing you down. I don't know which it is yet." She sighed. "His place would be easier." That sounds suspiciously like agreement. I'm not agreeing. I'm describing the number of stairs. You two have formed a staircase conspiracy. We prefer coalition. I smiled in spite of myself. Then Caroline said, "You might like being near people again." The again stung more than she intended. She apologized immediately, which made it worse. A week later, I told Ben he could begin the renovation, but I did not promise to sell until I saw what he built. He agreed so quickly, I knew he had already scheduled someone. For the next 2 months, he sent photographs. Walls opened, pipes appeared, walls closed again. Tessa texted me pictures of faucets and cabinet pulls. Whenever I chose one, she found a reason the other would function better. After the 3rd round, I told her to pick whatever she wanted and surprise me. "I want it to feel like you," she wrote. I stared at the message, surrounded by the flowered curtains and scarred furniture she had politely described as traditional. I wrote back, "Then one cabinet should stick and a faucet should drip whenever company comes." She sent a laughing face. 10 minutes later, she ordered the brushed steel. The house sold faster than I was ready for. A couple made an offer after the first showing. Sheila said they loved the light. I nearly refused them for not mentioning the woodwork. On my final night there, I packed the last kitchen box and found myself carrying Paul's photograph from room to room. I tried it on the mantel, then the windowsill, then returned it to the sideboard. It had stood there for 11 years. The rectangle beneath it was darker than the surrounding wood. Ben came early the next afternoon to drive me to the finished suite. The movers were due the following morning. I carried the photograph to his car myself and held it on my lap the entire way. Now I stood in my new bedroom while my son told me it would not have a place. "It's one photograph," I said. "It's never one." Ben's voice stayed level. "It's the picture, then Dad's chair, then boxes from the garage. You'll rebuild that house down here one object at a time. They're my objects. This is our home." Tessa flinched at the word "our." Ben did not. I looked past him into the sitting room with its river stone tile and shelves too shallow for half my books. Everything was clean, thoughtful, expensive, and selected for a woman who seemed to have no past messier than a catalog page. "And what exactly is this room?" I asked. "Yours, but not enough to put him in it." Ben's jaw tightened. For 1 second, something frightened moved behind his face. Then it was gone. "If you're going to live here, Mom, you have to live here, not back there with Dad." Tessa stepped forward. "Maybe the photograph could stay in the bedroom for now." Ben turned to her. "That defeats the point." Neither of them explained what the point was. I set the photograph carefully on the new bed. The plastic wrapping crackled beneath the frame. Then I opened the empty wardrobe, placed Paul inside on the top shelf, and closed the door. "There," I said. "Now it smells like someone lives here." Tessa was the first to move. She crossed the bedroom and opened the wardrobe again, as though the last 10 seconds might be corrected by changing the angle of the door. "We can figure this out," she said. Ben rubbed the back of his neck. "There's nothing to figure out. There usually is when 2 people are unhappy." "I'm not unhappy," he said. Tessa gave him a look I had seen her use on contractors and restaurant servers, who claimed the kitchen was out of something. "That makes one of you." I lifted Paul's photograph from the shelf. "I'll take it back with me tonight." "You don't have to do that," Tessa said. "Apparently I do." Ben walked into the sitting room. He stopped near the kitchenette with his hands on his hips, staring at all the work he had done as if the rooms themselves ought to speak on his behalf. He had done good work. That was the irritating truth. The doorways were wide without looking institutional. The bathroom floor warmed underfoot. He had found brass reading lamps similar to the ones in my old bedroom, though he had chosen black shades instead of cream. Beside the patio door stood a narrow built-in cabinet with sliding shelves. "For the heavy appliances," he said when I joined him. "You won't have to reach overhead. Very clever." His shoulders loosened slightly. I opened one shelf. It moved with a soft, expensive whisper. "Where will I put the dishes?" "Upper cabinet. So I can reach over my head for china, but not a toaster? You use the toaster every day. I use a plate every time I use the toaster." Tessa made a sound that was suspiciously close to a laugh. Ben looked at her. "I'm sorry," she said. "Your mother has identified a flaw in the system. It's not a flaw. No, I agreed. It's a feature. It will keep me limber. He shut the shelf harder than necessary. The noise cracked through the empty room. I wanted him to say he was sorry, not a grand apology, just a small one, the kind that lets everyone keep their dignity and proceed to coffee. Instead, he took his phone from his pocket and checked the time. "I need to get Mom back," he said. "The movers are coming at 8. Tessa followed us to the front door. She hugged me longer than usual, smelling of her citrus perfume and fresh paint. "We really do want you here," she whispered. There were 3 possible answers, and none of the honest ones would have helped. I patted her back. Ben carried the photograph to the car. He placed it face down in the rear seat before opening my door for me. I turned it over. He noticed, but said nothing. The drive back took 18 minutes. Ben spent 14 of them explaining the heating controls. There was a separate thermostat for the suite, though the temperature could not be set more than 4 degrees above or below the rest of the house because it remained part of the same system. "So, I'm independent within a range," I said. "It's how the equipment works." "I'm sure it is." At my house, he came inside and stood among the boxes. Without curtains, the living room had taken on the exposed look of a patient in a paper gown. Every sound traveled. When Ben set the photograph on the sideboard, the frame made a hollow knock. "You don't have to do this," I said. He glanced over. "Do what?" "Pretend nothing happened." "I'm not pretending. You told me my husband's face is unwelcome in the place I'm supposed to call home. That isn't what I said. It was impressively close." He looked toward the empty space where Paul's chair had been. The movers had wrapped it that morning and left it in the dining room with the larger pieces. It was an old brown recliner, ugly from birth and made worse by years of use. Paul had defended it as though comfort were a constitutional right. Ben touched the back of it. "This is going into storage." "No, it isn't." "Mom, it won't fit." "Then remove something that doesn't have a history. That whole room is 600 square feet, and the chair is not." He walked around it, measuring with his eyes. "It blocks the patio door if we put it where you marked it. I'll decide where it goes when I'm there." He gave the chair a small shove, perhaps to test its weight. One of the wrapped footrest pieces shifted and poked through the blanket. "You hated this thing," he said. "I did. You complained about it for 20 years. I complained about Paul for 42. I didn't put him in storage." The words came out sharper than I intended. Ben's face closed. "Fine," he said. "Keep the chair." He left before I could tell him that winning had not been my intention. I slept badly on the mattress in the nearly empty bedroom. The bed frame had been disassembled, so the mattress lay on the floor. Every time I woke, I had to remember why the ceiling looked larger. At 2 in the morning, I went downstairs and made tea in a saucepan because I had already packed the kettle. Paul's photograph stood on the sideboard beneath the dark outline it had left in the finish. I sat across from it with the tea balanced on a moving box. "You could have smiled less," I told him. "You're causing trouble." He remained delighted. By 7, I had dressed and made the mistake of removing the sheets from the mattress before remembering I had nowhere to sit. I ate a banana standing at the kitchen counter. At 7:45, Tessa arrived with coffee and 4 blueberry muffins. "I come bearing carbohydrates," she announced. She wore jeans, work boots, and a white blouse that seemed chosen to demonstrate supernatural confidence around cardboard dust. Her dark hair was twisted up with a pencil. "Where's Ben?" "Arguing with a man about a truck." "Is it his truck?" "No." "Then why is he arguing?" "It's how he makes friends." She handed me a coffee. My name was written on the cup as Evie. No one called me that. I drank it anyway. Tessa walked through the rooms checking labels. I had marked each box with its destination: bedroom, kitchenette, sitting room, storage. She stopped at one labeled Paul, garage. "How many of these are there?" 6. "What's in them?" "Tools, a few carvings, manuals for appliances that stopped existing in the 90s. She smiled. "Ben kept the manual for our first microwave. That is definitely my fault. I raised him to fear warranty expiration." Her hand rested on the box. He has trouble with things that don't have a use. He built me shelves for a toaster. You know what I mean? I did. I waited to see if she would say more. Instead, she picked up the photograph. Her thumb moved across one corner of the walnut frame. This is beautiful. They made it together. Ben and Paul? I nodded. Ben was 20. He wanted to buy his father something for his birthday and had no money. Paul suggested they build a frame, which is the kind of suggestion only a father would make about his own gift. Tessa turned the picture over. On the back, Paul had written the date of the retirement dinner in black ink. Beneath it, in Ben's younger handwriting, were the words, "Dad says the left corner is fine." It was not fine. The joint sat a fraction too high. Tessa traced it with her finger. He never told me that. They spent 3 Saturdays on it. Paul kept finding reasons to redo pieces. Was Ben good at it? He was terrible. Then he wasn't. A truck door slammed outside. Tessa set the photograph down so quickly it seemed guilty. Ben came in with 2 movers behind him. He kissed Tessa, asked whether she had eaten, then handed her a roll of bright green tape. They moved easily around each other when there was a task to perform. She anticipated what he needed. He remembered what she forgot. It was one of the things I liked about watching them together. Their marriage seemed strongest when furniture was in danger. For the next 3 hours, the house emptied. Every object looked less important once 2 strangers carried it. My dining table went out sideways. The rolled living room rug left dust underneath in the shape of a continent. Ben directed boxes with the intensity of an airport controller. "Storage," he told one mover who was carrying Paul's chair. "Sweet," I said. The mover stopped between us. Ben pointed toward the truck. "Put it near the back. We'll decide there." "We just did," I said. The mover looked at Tessa. "Sweet," she told him. Ben tore a strip of green tape with his teeth and said nothing. The last object was the photograph. I carried it myself. When I stepped outside, Sheila was standing beside her car with a folder. The buyers would receive the keys that afternoon, but she had come early to make sure nothing had been left behind. She hugged me and said, "You must be excited." People always offered the emotion they needed you to display. "I'm something," I said. Sheila looked at the picture in my hands. "Your husband?" "Yes." He had a wonderful smile. He had terrible timing. Usually he smiled after everyone else had stopped. Ben called from the truck that we were ready. Sheila squeezed my arm and went inside to inspect the emptiness. I got into Tessa's car because Ben wanted to ride with the movers. As we pulled away, I watched the house through the side mirror. I expected a powerful, final feeling. Instead, I noticed the upstairs bathroom curtain was still hanging. I forgot the shower curtain. "We can get it later," Tessa said. "It isn't mine anymore." She slowed at the corner. "Do you want me to turn around?" I pictured myself asking Sheila for one last minute in a house that had already changed hands because of a 6-year-old shower curtain covered in blue fish. No. Let them have it. At the suite, the movers carried in the bed, the round table, and Paul's chair. The chair did block part of the patio door. I angled it toward the window and reduced the blockage to something an agile person could survive. Ben watched me adjust it. "You won't be able to open the door all the way. I don't intend to drive through it." He went to direct the bedroom furniture. By late afternoon, boxes rose around me in uneven towers. Tessa stocked the small refrigerator with milk, eggs, cheese, and a bottle of wine. Ben connected my television, tested the smoke detector twice, and placed a flashlight in the bedside drawer. "There's a key to the interior door," he said, "but we usually leave it unlocked." "I don't." He paused. "You want to lock it?" "When I'm asleep." "Why?" "So nobody comes in." "We wouldn't." "Then the lock won't inconvenience you." He considered arguing, but Tessa handed him an empty box before he could begin. They ordered Chinese food for dinner. We ate at my round table because their dining room was covered with renovation supplies. Tessa opened the wine. Ben talked about where to hang my mirror and whether the patio needed another light. No one mentioned the photograph. I had placed it on the bedroom dresser, partly hidden behind a box of folded sweaters. After dinner, Tessa carried the cartons upstairs. Ben stood at my interior door, one hand on the frame. "Text if you need anything." "I will. We're right upstairs. So you've said." He looked past me toward the bedroom. I couldn't tell whether he could see the frame. "I want this to work," he said. I waited. He gave a tired nod and stepped into the hall. "Good night, Mom." I locked the door after him. 10 minutes later, someone tried the handle. It moved once, stopped, and then Ben called through the door. "You locked it already?" "I'm practicing." "I forgot my phone on your table." It lay beside the empty wine glass. I unlocked the door and handed it to him. He smiled as if the whole thing were amusing, but his eyes dropped to the key in my hand. When he left again, I turned the lock more quietly. The first sound I heard in the morning was water moving through pipes above my head. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. The ceiling was lower than the one in my old bedroom, and a narrow blade of sunlight had found its way between the unfamiliar curtains. Then someone upstairs dropped something heavy enough to make the light fixture tremble. I sat up. "Good morning to you, too," I said. The bedside clock read 6:12. I could hear footsteps crossing the kitchen overhead, then the low mechanical growl of Ben's coffee grinder. The noises were muffled but recognizable. There was something comforting about them. Other people were beginning their day within shouting distance. If I fell, choked, or discovered the house was on fire, I had witnesses. On the other hand, I now knew exactly how often my son used the bathroom. I dressed and began unpacking the kitchenette. Tessa had arranged the food as though preparing for an inspection, labels facing forward, eggs centered, cheese lined up by color. I moved the mustard to the door, which felt like my first independent decision. At 7:30, I made coffee and carried it to the patio. Ben had promised morning coffee together, but I didn't want to appear upstairs on my first day like a hotel guest seeking breakfast service. I sat in Paul's chair and watched two squirrels conduct a territorial dispute near the fence. The sliding door opened only 3/4 of the way because of the chair. Ben had been right. I resented the door for proving it. At 8:15, he came down the outdoor steps in a blue dress shirt with one cuff undone. "You're up. It's morning." "I thought we'd have coffee." "I did too." He glanced at the cup in my hand. I had to answer emails. I assumed something came up. "Tomorrow. Coffee keeps." He bent to kiss my cheek, then inspected the patio door. "You see what I mean about the chair? Goodbye, Ben." He laughed and hurried away, still fastening his cuff. Tessa appeared an hour later carrying a cordless drill. She knocked on the glass instead of using the interior door. "Do you know how to operate one of these?" she asked. "I was married to Paul for 42 years. I know how to hold a drill incorrectly while a man explains torque." She needed help hanging a small shelf in their upstairs laundry room. I followed her through the interior hallway and up a flight of stairs that was less steep than mine had been, but still apparently existed, despite Ben's campaign against stairs. Their kitchen was bright, open, and aggressively clean. 3 coffee mugs sat by the sink. One was mine, the yellow mug Tessa had given me 5 Christmases earlier. "World's okayest mother-in-law" was printed across it. I was saving that, I said. "For your arrival, you drank from it." I needed moral support. She carried the drill into the laundry room. The shelf had come with instructions consisting entirely of drawings. We spent 15 minutes trying to decide whether a tiny illustrated triangle meant caution or shelf. Ben would measure this 6 times, she said. Paul would measure it once, cut it wrong, and blame the house. Tessa smiled without looking at me. "Ben doesn't like it when I compare him to Paul. I wasn't." "I know." She held the shelf against the wall while I marked the holes. "He wants everything to be good so badly that he gets strange when it isn't. That is a generous description of your husband. I married him. I'm contractually obligated to provide generous descriptions." The shelf went up slightly crooked. Tessa stepped back and tilted her head. "Perfect," she declared. "That's how houses acquire character." When I returned downstairs, the interior door was still open. I closed and locked it, then stood on my side wondering whether Tessa would think I had locked her out. The thought annoyed me enough that I left it locked. The movers had stacked 3 boxes marked Paul, garage beside the patio cabinet. The other 3 were missing. I checked the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchenette. I even looked behind the shower curtain, which was plain white and lacked fish. Ben answered on the 4th ring. "Are 3 of Paul's boxes in your garage?" "Probably." "Why?" "There wasn't space." "There was space yesterday." "We needed to clear the walkway. I'll bring them down when you've unpacked." "What's in the 3 you kept?" "I don't know, Mom. They're boxes." "Then how did you choose?" A pause. They were closest to the garage side of the truck. It was plausible. That made it more irritating. "I want them back. I'll bring them this weekend." "Today. I'm at work. I am aware. You used to describe it every evening." He breathed out. "I'll do it after dinner." "Thank you. Did you find the extra batteries?" "Yes. And the shutoff valve is in the cabinet under. I found that too." "Good. I just want to make sure you're settled." I would feel more settled with all my belongings. He ended the call by saying he loved me. Ben often placed those words where another person might have placed an apology. They still worked more often than I liked to admit. At noon, a delivery man rang the main bell upstairs. I ignored it. He rang again, then knocked on my patio door after seeing me through the glass. "You Mrs. Mercer?" he asked. "One of them." He had a tall box addressed to Tessa. I signed for it and wedged it inside my door. 10 minutes later, Tessa texted to thank me. At 2, another package arrived. At 4:30, Ben called to ask whether the heating technician had come. I didn't know one was coming. He was supposed to check the upstairs vent. No one came. "Can you stay around tomorrow morning?" "They may reschedule." I was planning to buy groceries. "What time?" I hadn't planned my escape that carefully. It would help us out. The words were reasonable. The request was small. He had built me a warm bathroom and installed a flashlight beside my bed. I said yes. That evening, he returned the missing boxes. He carried them one at a time and arranged them against the sitting room wall. "See," he said after the last one, "crisis resolved." It wasn't a crisis. You called me at work. I've called you at work before, usually because somebody died. I'll try to maintain that standard. He rubbed his forehead. "That isn't what I meant." "No, but it is what you said." He crouched beside the nearest box and opened the top. Inside were Paul's wood planes wrapped in old towels. Ben lifted the smallest one. The wooden handle had darkened where Paul's hand used to rest. "I remember this," he said. "You should. You dropped it on your foot. I was 12. You swore so impressively your father had to leave the garage to laugh." Ben turned the plane over. For a moment, his thumb rested along the blade housing exactly as Paul's would have. Then he wrapped it again and shut the box. "You don't need 6 boxes of tools down here. I don't need most of what I own. You could donate them to someone who'd use them." "Perhaps I will. They'll rust in boxes." I said perhaps. He stood. "I'm trying to help. You're always trying to help me get rid of things, because you kept everything. I sold an entire house and moved half of it into 600 square feet. Why do you care? The boxes aren't upstairs." His gaze moved toward the bedroom. I knew what he was looking for before he found the dresser. Paul's photograph remained partially obscured by the sweater box. Only his shoulder and one laughing eye were visible. Ben's mouth tightened, then relaxed. "You need anything else?" he asked. "No." "Okay." He left through the interior door without attempting to hug me. The heating technician arrived the next morning at 11:45. By then, I had postponed groceries, finished unpacking the bathroom, and eaten cheese on crackers for lunch. The technician spent 7 minutes upstairs and did not enter my suite. Tessa came home at 6 with a paper bag full of groceries. "I heard you got trapped here," she said. "I was not trapped. Ben said you were annoyed. Ben believes any woman who disagrees with him is annoyed." She removed tomatoes, bread, coffee, and a bottle of the mustard I had already moved to the refrigerator door. "I can shop for myself, I know. This is a thank you. Then I accept the coffee." "You're rejecting my tomatoes?" They look judgmental. She laughed and began putting things away before I could stop her. She returned the mustard to the center shelf. Ben wants to do Sunday dinner, she said. That was the idea. He suggested pot roast. Did he? He says yours is better. He says that because you don't make pot roast. I don't make anything requiring an animal to remain in the oven for 4 hours. I leaned against the counter. Is Caroline coming? She said she could drive down. I spoke to her 2 days ago. She and Ben arranged it. Of course they did. Tessa stopped with the refrigerator open. Would you rather we didn't? No, I'd like to see her. We thought it could be a welcome dinner. In my kitchen, our dining room, more space. And I cook down here. We can cook together. There was no reason to object. I had cooked thousands of family meals. I liked feeding people, including people who irritated me, especially them, sometimes. Chopping onions provided a socially acceptable reason for tears and a knife to hold during conversation. Tell Ben I'll make the roast. Tessa kissed my cheek. He'll be happy. Let's not overpromise. On Sunday, Caroline arrived carrying flowers and an overnight bag. She came through the patio door before going upstairs, nearly hitting Paul's chair when the door stopped short. I see you won that argument, she said. There was no argument. Then why did Ben text me a photograph of this chair with a tape measure beside it? She was taller than I was, with gray beginning at the front of her brown hair, in a streak she refused to color. She hugged me, then stepped back and examined the room. This is nice. It is. No, really. It's beautiful. I didn't say it wasn't. She noticed the boxes of tools, then looked toward the bedroom. I watched her eyes find the photograph. So that's where you put Dad. I put his photograph on my dresser. Ben said you were upset. Ben gives thorough reports. Caroline set the flowers on the counter. Mom, you knew living in their house would require some adjustment. I did not know my dresser required committee approval. He's not trying to erase Dad. Then he has chosen an unusual way to show it. She lowered her voice. He did all of this for you. There it was again. The suite presented as evidence, every considerate detail accumulating into a debt I could never finish paying. I took the flowers from her and searched for a vase. Caroline followed me. I'm not taking sides. People only say that after they've taken one. I'm saying a photograph isn't worth damaging your relationship with Ben. I found a glass pitcher and filled it at the sink. If it's only a photograph, I said, why is he willing to damage our relationship over it? Caroline opened her mouth, then closed it. Upstairs, Ben called that he needed the roasting pan. I trimmed the flower stems with my kitchen scissors and placed the pitcher in the center of my round table. Then I went into the bedroom, moved the box of sweaters to the floor, and turned Paul's photograph fully toward the room. His walnut frame stood straight on the dresser. The left corner was still not fine. Ben came down for the roasting pan and found me in the bedroom. He stopped in the doorway. His eyes went directly to the dresser. You moved the box. I unpacked my sweaters. You know what I mean. I usually do. It saves time. Paul laughed silently between us. Ben stared at the frame long enough for me to wonder whether he was looking at his father or the corner joint. Then he said, "The roasting pan. It's in the cabinet beneath the stove." He found it and carried it upstairs without another word. Caroline had heard enough from the sitting room to become very interested in arranging the flowers. "He shouldn't have said anything," she murmured. "You sound surprised. I thought he'd let it go. He thought I would." She turned the pitcher a quarter turn. "You both do this." "Do what?" "Find one sentence and pull on it until the entire family unravels." I asked where to put a photograph. "I know. You say that as though I've claimed innocence at a murder trial." Caroline sighed. "I'm going upstairs. Take the flowers. Apparently dinner is up there." The arrangement looked too tall on Tessa's dining table, but no one mentioned it. Her table was long, rectangular, and made from wood that had been distressed at the factory. Paul would have found that offensive. He believed furniture should earn its damage. Tessa had set 5 places with blue linen napkins. At mine, she had placed a small card that said, "Welcome home," in careful block letters. A tiny key was drawn beneath the words. I slipped the card into my pocket before Ben sat down. The roast was good. I knew this because everyone stopped talking during the first few bites, which is the only honest compliment a cook receives. Ben had carved it too thin, but I chose not to begin my new life by criticizing the width of his meat. "This tastes like Dad's birthday," Caroline said. Ben's knife stopped against his plate. She noticed. "I mean the dinners Mom used to make." "I know what you meant." Tessa reached for the carrots. "What did Paul like for his birthday?" "Pot roast," I said, "and pineapple upside-down cake." "That's an odd combination." "Your father liked any cake served upside down," I told Ben and Caroline. "He said it saved time because it was already halfway to your mouth." Caroline laughed. Ben drank his water. "Do you remember the year he dropped one?" she asked. "Caroline," Ben said. "What? It was funny. It was also 30 years ago. That's usually when memories happen." Tessa looked from one of them to the other. "What happened?" Caroline leaned forward. "Dad tried to flip the cake out of the pan before it cooled. It slid off the plate, hit the cabinet, and landed upside down on the floor." "Right side up," I corrected. "Technically." Ben ate a piece. I did not. "You picked pineapple off the floor. I was 12. You were 15. Ben's mouth twitched despite him. For half a second, I saw the boy who used to laugh so hard he hiccuped. Then he put down his fork. "We should talk about the patio," he said. Caroline sat back. Naturally. He ignored her. "The light near Mom's door doesn't cover the steps. I'm adding another fixture." "The current light is fine," I said. "It's not bright enough. It has successfully illuminated every step so far. You've been here one night and not fallen once. Our system works." Tessa gave me the bowl of carrots. "The extra light might be useful when people come over." "What people?" "We were thinking about having a housewarming." Ben picked up the conversation as if it had been assigned to him. "Nothing big. Friends, a few people from work. We promised everyone they could see the renovation when it was done." I looked around their dining room. "Is the rest of the house new too?" "The housewarming is for the renovation. You built me a bedroom. Are people planning to bring gifts for the shower bench?" Caroline snorted into her napkin. Tessa smiled. "It's more of a dinner." "Drinks," Ben said. "Food. People will want to see the downstairs. The downstairs has a tenant. Mom. I'm clarifying the attraction. It's part of the house. So is your bedroom. I assume there won't be a tour." The line landed harder than I intended. Ben's face sharpened. "No one's invading your privacy. I'm saying our friends will probably want to see what we did." "What you did?" "Yes, what I did." Tessa set down her fork. "We'll ask before anyone goes downstairs." "I'm asking now," Ben said. "No, you're announcing." Caroline shifted in her chair. "How many people?" "Maybe 12, Tessa said. 18, Ben said at the same time. They looked at each other. 18? Tessa asked. I told Mark he could bring Dana. That does not account for 6 additional people. While they renegotiated their guest list, I ate my carrots. There was something almost soothing about watching someone else discover that Ben's plans tended to expand after approval. Dessert was a bakery apple pie because I had refused to make a cake. Tessa lit a candle in the center of it anyway. "For the house," she said. "Whose wish?" Caroline asked. "Evelyn's." They all looked at me. I blew out the candle and wished for a door no one considered communal. After dinner, Tessa told me to leave the dishes. Then she and Caroline carried wine into the living room while Ben went to look for a dimmer switch online. I stood alone beside the half-loaded dishwasher. "Leave them," Tessa called. "I'm just soaking the pan." "Seriously, Evelyn, I hear you." I soaked the pan, wiped the counters, packed the remaining roast into containers, and finished loading the dishwasher. I could have stopped. No one had ordered me to clean. But an untidy kitchen after a family dinner felt like leaving a sentence unfinished. When I joined them, Tessa had her feet tucked beneath her on the sofa. Ben was showing Caroline photographs of the patio before construction. None of them noticed the kitchen was clean. Caroline slept upstairs in the guest room, though she came down after midnight in a robe and found me reading in Paul's chair. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "I'm reading." "You read when you can't sleep. You've become very observant since dinner." She sat at my round table. Without makeup, she looked tired around the eyes. Caroline had spent the last 5 years managing a medical billing department and spoke about her coworkers as though coordinating a fragile peace between nations. "This is nice," she said again. "You're determined to convince me. I'm trying to convince myself." I lowered the book. She ran her finger over a scratch in the table. "Ben told me he'd make it comfortable." "I didn't know comfortable would come with so many policies. That almost sounded like you were taking my side." "I'm not." "There she is." She smiled, then glanced toward the bedroom. "Keep the photograph where you want it." I waited, but maybe don't turn everything into a challenge. "I put it on a dresser, Caroline. I didn't project it onto the front of the house. You know Ben. Once he decides something is about a principle, he can't back down without feeling like he's surrendered the entire country. That is not a lovable quality." "No, but it's a familiar one. She meant me." I closed my book. "Good night, Caroline." She kissed the top of my head. "Good night, Mom." In the morning, she left before breakfast because she wanted to avoid traffic. She hugged Ben and Tessa in the driveway, then came through my patio door for a second goodbye. "Call me if you need anything. I have a flashlight, batteries, and access to emergency mustard. I mean it. So do I." After she drove away, Ben and Tessa left for work. The house settled into silence. I opened the patio door as far as Paul's chair permitted and began sorting the toolboxes. The tools smelled faintly of oil in the garage. I found chisels wrapped in a dish towel, 2 hand drills, a wooden mallet, and a coffee can filled with screws Paul had insisted were still perfectly good. At the bottom of one box lay a small carved bird with only one wing. Paul had started making it during his final winter. His hands shook by then, and he could work for only 20 minutes before tiring. He had complained that the bird looked like a potato with ambition. I placed it on the shelf beside my books. At 10, a package arrived for Tessa. At 11:30, another came for Ben. Shortly after noon, Ben called. "Did the electrician show up?" "No. He was supposed to be there at 12. It is 12:10. Can you text me when he arrives?" I could also notify the governor. "Mom." "Yes, I'll text." The electrician came at 1:15, installed the extra patio light, and asked me 3 times whether I was Ben's mother. The 3rd time, I said no. I was an unusually involved stranger. By the end of the week, I had signed for 7 packages, admitted 2 contractors, watered Tessa's potted lemon tree, and moved a load of towels from their washing machine to their dryer after she called from work. Each request was minor. Together, they gave my days a peculiar shape, as though I had moved closer to my family by becoming the person who was always available when they were elsewhere. There were pleasures, too. Tessa came down one evening with a bottle of nail polish and painted my toenails a red, so bright I could see them in the dark. Ben fixed the loose handle on my dresser without commenting on the photograph above it. On Thursday, he knocked at 7 with 2 mugs of coffee. "I remembered," he said. We sat on the patio while the squirrels resumed their border dispute. For 15 minutes, Ben told me about a difficult project at work. I knew nothing about commercial ventilation, but I knew when he wanted advice and when he only wanted a witness. When he stood to leave, he touched my shoulder. "We're glad you're here." That morning carried me through several disappointments I might otherwise have named. The housewarming settled on the following Saturday. Tessa sent me a message asking if I minded, though invitations had already gone out. I wrote that I did not. On Wednesday, I went to lunch with Denise. Denise had been widowed 6 years and considered this proof of expertise in subjects no one had asked her about. She wore silver bracelets that struck the table when she spoke and had recently cut her white hair so short that Ben said it made her look dramatically independent. "How's communal living?" she asked. "I live in a private suite. Do they know that?" I told her about the packages but not the photograph. Saying it aloud would make it either too small or too large, and I hadn't decided which. When I returned, my interior door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. I stood with my hand on the knob, replaying the morning. Upstairs, I found Tessa arranging white serving platters across the kitchen island. One of them was mine. "I needed the long one for Saturday," she said. I knocked. I was out, I noticed. So you let yourself in. Her hand stopped over the platters. The key was in the utility drawer. I had not known they kept a key. Tessa's face changed when she saw mine. I should have texted. You should have waited. You're right. She said it without argument, which left me nowhere to put my anger. I'm sorry, she added. I was moving too fast. I took the platter and carried it downstairs. Ben came home 20 minutes later. He knocked but opened the interior door before I answered. Tessa said there was a misunderstanding. There was an unlocked door. She apologized. Yes. She needed a platter. Yes. He leaned against the frame. We're all adjusting. I looked past him toward the hallway connecting my rooms to his. Who has the key? We do. For emergencies. A serving platter is not an emergency. No one said it was. But the emergency key opened the door. He straightened. Do you want me to give up access if you fall in the shower? I want you to know the difference between rescuing me and borrowing from me. His mouth tightened. Behind me, Paul's photograph stood on the dresser, fully visible from the doorway. Ben looked at it and then at me. Saturday, he said. Maybe keep the bedroom door closed. I walked over and closed it while he was still standing there. He did not knock again. For the rest of the week, the long white platter remained on my counter like disputed territory. Tessa came down Friday evening carrying a peace offering in the form of a cheese board shaped like a leaf. I bought another platter, she said. Then I have won a battle I did not know we were fighting. You've also gained a leaf. She set it beside the sink. A price sticker remained on the underside. I'm sorry about the door, she said. Really? I know, I wasn't thinking. I know that too. She winced. Somehow, that one feels worse. I made tea. She sat at the round table, twisting her wedding ring while the kettle heated. Ben thinks you're miserable here. Ben thinks discomfort is a system failure. He feels responsible. He is responsible for some of it. That isn't what I meant. It usually isn't. I gave her tea in a mug printed with a cartoon lobster. It had survived 3 kitchen renovations, 2 moves, and Paul's attempt to use it as a container for paint thinner. Tessa wrapped both hands around it. Tomorrow doesn't have to be a tour. I told him that. What did he say? That people are curious. People are also curious about medical procedures. We don't serve cocktails during them. She smiled into the mug. We'll keep the bedroom closed. Ben already made that clear. He shouldn't have said it that way. He says things the way he means them. No, he says things the way he can defend them. That surprised me. Tessa usually protected Ben by translating him into a gentler language. This was the first time she had admitted the original might be accurate. Does he talk about Paul with you? I asked. The question changed her posture. Her shoulders drew in. Sometimes. When? I don't keep a record. I'm not interrogating you. It feels a little like you are. I took the chair across from her. I'm trying to understand why a picture of his father makes him act as though I've brought a loaded weapon into the house. Tessa stared at the steam rising from her tea. He misses him, she said. That's a very strange form of missing. People get strange. You said that about wanting things to be good. Maybe he's strange in several ways. Before I could ask more, the interior door opened. Ben took one step inside, saw us sitting together, and stopped. What's going on? Your mother is giving me tea, Tessa said. He looked at the leaf board, my platter, and our faces. Okay, you don't have to inspect the scene, I told him. No one has been murdered. I came down to ask if you have an extension cord. I did. It is either in one of the garage boxes or in the house I no longer own. I'll buy one. Tessa stood and carried her mug toward him. As she passed, she kissed his cheek. It was a small gesture, but I saw his entire body settle. We're okay, she said. I didn't ask. You did with your face. After they went upstairs, I locked the door. Saturday began with footsteps, cupboard doors, and Ben swearing at ice. By 9, Tessa had sent me 4 messages. Did I have parsley? Could she use my punch bowl? Had I seen the box of cocktail napkins? Would I mind keeping 2 bottles of wine in my refrigerator? I answered, yes, yes, no, and no. Then I took her the parsley, punch bowl, and wine. Their kitchen had lost its normal discipline. Grocery bags crowded the counters. A tray of uncooked pastries sat beside the sink. Ben was on a stool adjusting a light that had functioned perfectly the day before. "You're going to electrocute yourself over atmosphere," I said. "The bulb is flickering. It's frightened." He ignored me. Tessa pointed to a cutting board covered with lemons. "Can you slice those?" I picked up the knife. I thought I was the guest of honor. "You are. Does every guest receive a task, or am I special? You're family." The phrase landed warmly and poorly at the same time. For 2 hours I sliced fruit, arranged crackers, and corrected Tessa's attempt to make deviled eggs with yogurt. Ben moved furniture by inches, stepped back, frowned, and moved it again. We were good together in the kitchen despite ourselves. Tessa played old soul music, and when Ben tried to dance around the island, she told him he moved like a man escaping bees. I laughed hard enough to spill paprika. For a while, the house felt like the one he had promised me. Not Paul's house rebuilt, not mine surrendered, but a place where 3 imperfect adults could occupy the same morning without measuring what belonged to whom. At noon, Ben carried a stack of folded chairs down to the patio. I followed with a bowl of ice. He set the chairs against the wall and surveyed my sitting room. "We should clear those boxes before people come." "No, they're in the walkway. They're against the wall. They make the room look unfinished. The room is unfinished." He looked toward the one-winged bird on the shelf. "What's that?" "Something your father was carving. It looks like a potato." So he said. Ben walked over and picked it up. He turned it in his hand, then put it back in exactly the same spot. "You could put the toolboxes in the wardrobe for tonight. My clothes are in the wardrobe, not all 6. "No." He exhaled. "Fine." I carried the empty ice bowl upstairs. When I returned 20 minutes later, the boxes had been pushed closer together and covered with a folded throw. It was irritating but almost funny. I left them covered. At 3, I showered and dressed in a navy blouse Caroline had once said made me look authoritative. The bedroom door was closed. Paul's photograph stood on the dresser beside my hairbrush and a small glass dish containing my earrings. I touched the top of the frame before going upstairs. Guests began arriving at 4. Mark was a project manager from Ben's office, tall and friendly, with a voice that could cross several rooms without assistance. Dana, his wife, brought a bottle of wine and immediately apologized for it being inexpensive. Tessa's neighbor Celia arrived with cheese no one was allowed to cut because it needed to reach room temperature. More people followed until the kitchen filled with coats, perfume, and conversations being repeated louder than necessary. Ben introduced me as the reason for all the construction. "It makes me sound like flood damage," I said. Mark laughed. "Ben showed us the plans. That suite is incredible. He does enjoy a floor plan. He talked about it for months, said he wanted everything perfect." I looked across the kitchen at Ben. He was opening wine, smiling as Dana told him something. I wondered how many times I had mistaken his need for perfection as evidence that he understood me. For the first hour, everyone stayed upstairs. I began to think Tessa had kept her promise. Then Celia asked where the new patio was. "This way," Ben said. He led 6 people toward the interior stairs. Tessa caught my eye. "Is that okay?" "No." She moved after them. Ben. But he had already opened my door. The group descended into the sitting room with appreciative noises. Mark praised the built-in shelves. Dana opened the kitchenette cabinet without asking and admired the sliding toaster shelf. Celia said she would happily move in tomorrow. "You'd have to pass an interview," I told her. "With Ben? With the toaster?" More guests followed. The room filled quickly, forcing people around Paul's chair and the covered boxes. Someone set a wine glass on my round table without a coaster. Another person picked up the carved bird. "What is this?" he asked. "A potato with ambition," Ben said. Everyone laughed. The line had been Paul's. Hearing Ben use it made something twist beneath my ribs. He smiled down at the bird, then seemed to remember where the words came from. He placed it back on the shelf and reached for his drink. I looked toward my bedroom. The door was open. I knew I had closed it. 2 women stood just inside, admiring the bathroom tile through the opposite doorway. I crossed the room and stepped past them. "Excuse me." The dresser was bare except for my hairbrush and earrings. For one confused moment, I thought the photograph had fallen. I checked the floor, then the narrow space behind the dresser. Nothing. The wardrobe door was not fully shut. Paul stood on the top shelf facing outward, exactly where I had placed him during my first visit. Ben appeared in the bedroom doorway. I kept my voice low. "Did you move this?" Behind him, glasses clinked and someone asked where the thermostat was. "Mom, not now." "Did you?" He glanced over his shoulder. "Yes." "You entered my bedroom. I needed to open the door for the tour. The photograph was inside the room. It was easier to put it away. Easier for whom?" His face hardened, but his voice stayed quiet. "I didn't want people walking through here with Dad staring at them." "It is a photograph, Ben. I know what it is." "Do you?" Tessa came up behind him. She saw the open wardrobe and went still. "You moved it?" she asked. "I'm handling this." "No, you're not," I said. A burst of laughter came from the sitting room. One of Ben's co-workers called his name. He lowered his voice further. "Can we please not turn this into a scene? You opened my locked door, entered my bedroom, and hid my husband so your friends wouldn't see him. The scene already happened. The bedroom wasn't locked. The suite was. I have a key. For emergencies. This is my house." The words hung there. Tessa closed her eyes. Ben heard himself too late. His face changed, but pride arrived before regret. "Your rooms are part of it," he said. "People wanted to see the renovation. I wanted the suite to look peaceful, not sad." I looked at Paul's laughing face on the wardrobe shelf. "Sad," I repeated. "That isn't what I meant." It was exactly what he meant. I took the photograph down and set it on the dresser. Then I walked past both of them into the sitting room. The party continued because parties always do. Tessa brought more food downstairs. Ben showed Mark the patio light. I stood beside my round table while strangers praised the storage, the warm bathroom floor, the separate entrance, and my son's generosity. "You must love having her right here," Dana told Ben. Ben glanced at me. Whatever apology might have existed in him was trapped behind his guests. "It's convenient," he said. Then he raised his glass and smiled. "Honestly, bringing Mom in-house may be the smartest decision I ever made. Everyone heard affection. I heard inventory. I waited until they laughed before I went into the bedroom and closed the door. Then I sat on the edge of the bed with Paul's photograph in my lap and called Denise. She answered over music. If you're inviting me to a party, I need 20 minutes and better shoes. I'm not. The noise on her end went quiet. What happened? I looked at the locked bedroom door. Is your spare room still empty? I asked. Denise did not ask why. Yes, she said. The sheets are clean unless you object to flamingos. I've never taken a formal position. They're cheerful birds. I may need cheering. Tonight? I listened to voices moving through my sitting room. Someone had turned up the music upstairs. The bass traveled through the ceiling and into the mattress. Tomorrow morning, I said. I don't want to leave in front of his friends. That is either very considerate or very stubborn. Those have always been neighbors. What time? 9? I'll be there at 8:30. You don't have to pick me up. Yes, I do. I have a car. At your old house? I had forgotten. My car was still in Ben's driveway because I had arrived in Tessa's car on moving day, then spent the week waiting for deliveries instead of retrieving it. Sheila had arranged for Ben to move it before the buyers took possession. 8:30, I said. Pack medication, underwear, and something warmer than your pride. I'm hanging up. I love you too. After the call, I sat with the photograph in my lap until my legs went numb. The party slowly climbed back upstairs. A woman laughed outside my bedroom, then apologized through the door even though she had no idea whether I was there. Someone tried the bathroom and discovered I had locked it from inside the bedroom. Ben told him there was another one upstairs. At 6:40, Tessa knocked. Evelyn? I did not answer. It's me. That doesn't narrow it down as much as you think. Can I come in? I looked at the key on the dresser. Do I have a choice? Silence followed. Then she said, yes. I waited another moment before opening the door. Tessa stood alone. Her lipstick had faded at the center, and one of her earrings was missing. Behind her, the sitting room looked as though it had been searched. Glasses covered every surface. Crumbs sparkled on the rug. The throw had slipped from Paul's toolboxes, exposing the word garage on one label. I'm sorry, she said. Where is Ben? Upstairs. Of course. He's trying to get everyone to leave without making it obvious. He should turn off the lights. That worked at the library. She almost smiled, then saw my open suitcase on the bed. What are you doing? Packing. For where? Denise has a spare room. Tessa stepped inside and closed the bedroom door. Tonight? Tomorrow. Evelyn, please don't make a decision while you're angry. I sold my house while I was uncertain. I'm trying something different. He had no right to move the photograph. No. And he had no right to bring people through here after you said no. No. She sat on the edge of the bed, leaving careful space between herself and the suitcase. Then we agree. Agreement is not much use after you've helped serve the drinks. Her chin lifted. I tried to stop him. You said his name. What was I supposed to do? Throw 18 people out? You could have closed the door. He would have opened it again. Yes, I said. That is the problem. Tessa looked down at her hands. Pale lines showed where she had twisted her ring. He gets focused, she said. Ben is not a horse. I know. Then stop describing him as if he loses control of his own direction. Her eyes flashed. You think I don't stand up to him because you only notice when I fail. The sharpness surprised me. I notice when your failures happen in my bedroom, and I notice how you talk to him. How do I talk to him? Like you're waiting for Paul's answer to come out of his mouth, and when it doesn't, you act disappointed. I stared at her. Tessa stood, immediately looking as though she wished she could retrieve the sentence. I shouldn't have said that. No. You should have said it before I moved in. It has nothing to do with today. It must have something to do with it, or you wouldn't be standing here telling me. She pressed her lips together. From upstairs, Ben called for her. She did not answer. Does he talk to you about his father? I asked. Not the way you want him to. What way is that? I don't know, Evelyn. Maybe there is no right way. She opened the bedroom door. Are you going to tell him I'm leaving? You should tell him. That's what I intend to do. After she left, I packed 2 pairs of pants, 4 blouses, pajamas, medication, and the green cardigan Denise had once said made me resemble a dignified vegetable. I put my toiletries in a canvas bag. The suitcase looked pitifully empty until I added 3 books I was unlikely to read. Paul's photograph would not fit without pressure against the frame. I set it aside. The party ended at 8:15. I heard farewells, car doors, and Mark's voice crossing the patio as he thanked Ben for the tour. Then came the cleanup. Bottles clinking into bins, the dishwasher opening and closing, a vacuum passing overhead. No one knocked again. At 10, I left the bedroom to get water. The sitting room had been cleaned except for a damp ring on my round table. The interior door stood open. Ben was at the kitchenette counter with a trash bag. He had removed his shoes and rolled up his sleeves. You missed dessert, he said. I wasn't hungry. He tied the bag. Tessa told me you're packing. I am. So that's it? That is the next thing. Because I moved 1 picture. Because you keep calling it 1 picture while treating it like it can poison a room. He looked toward the bedroom. You were making a point by putting it where everyone could see it. It was on my dresser, behind a closed door. The door was open. Because you opened it. He pressed both hands against the counter. I spent months building this place for you, and I appreciate the labor. It's not labor, Mom. It's my home. We changed our home so you could be safe and near us. I did not ask you to remove my husband in exchange. No one is removing Dad. You wouldn't let his face sit in my bedroom. Why does it have to sit anywhere? The question left us both still. Ben looked away first. He picked up the trash bag and set it down again. "He is not in that frame," he said. "I know." "Then why are you acting like putting it in a wardrobe is putting him in a grave?" "I'm not. He's already in one." Ben flinched. There were words available to me then, softer ones. I could have told him I knew a photograph was wood, glass, and paper. I could have told him that grief did not make me confused. Instead, exhaustion selected my next sentence. "You don't get to decide which parts of my life are permitted to follow me." His face hardened. "And you don't get to move into our house and turn every boundary into an insult." "What boundary? The one where I lock my door? The one where I keep my belongings? The one where strangers do not enter my bedroom? You said yes to the party. I said yes to a party, not a public viewing. Tessa said people could come down. Tessa asked me after the invitations went out, and I said no to the tour in front of you. You embarrassed me." I almost laughed. "In front of whom?" "My friends could tell something was wrong. You disappeared. Tessa was upset. You made the whole night tense. I sat in my bedroom so I would not make a scene. You made one by leaving. It was an argument only Ben could construct. My absence had become an aggressive presence. I filled a glass from the tap. My hand shook enough that water splashed across the counter. Ben saw it. His expression softened, and for a second he looked like he might come around the counter and hold me. "Mom," he said, quieter, "go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. I'm leaving tomorrow. Where are you going to live?" "I don't know yet." "Exactly. I know where I cannot." His softness vanished. "If you walk out after 1 week, don't tell Caroline we threw you out." "I won't. I am perfectly capable of saying I left." Tessa apologized, and I accepted that she was sorry. "What else do you want?" The answer came so plainly that I wondered why none of us had found it sooner. "I want my room to be mine." He looked around the kitchenette, the shelves, the warm floor, the furniture placed inside walls he owned. "I can't give you that," he said. I nodded. "Then we finally understand each other." At 8:20 the next morning, Denise's red hatchback pulled into the driveway. She was early because she believed punctuality was what separated civilization from airports. She climbed out wearing black pants, a silver jacket, and sunglasses large enough to conceal a second person. Ben was already in the sitting room. He had not slept well. His hair stuck up at the back, and there were dark half-circles under his eyes. "Denise," he said when she entered. "Benjamin." No one called him Benjamin except Denise and the government. She looked at my suitcases but did not touch them. "Morning, Evelyn." Tessa came down carrying a travel mug. She had dressed for work, though it was Sunday. Her missing earring had not reappeared. "I made you coffee," she said. "Thank you." She handed it to me with both hands. "You could stay while we work this out." Ben stared at the patio. "I need to leave in order to know whether there is anything to work out," I said. "That doesn't make sense," he muttered. "It does to me." I put on my coat. Denise lifted one suitcase and Ben immediately took it from her. "I've got it." He carried both outside and placed them in her trunk. Even furious, my son would not let a 70-year-old woman carry luggage in front of him. Love survived in ridiculous places. I returned to the bedroom for Paul's photograph. When I came out holding it, Ben stood in the patio doorway. He looked at the frame, then at me. "You're really leaving over that?" "No," I said. "I'm taking that with me. I'm leaving over you." His face went pale. I wanted him to stop me correctly, not with arguments about safety or gratitude. I wanted him to say he understood what he had done and that it frightened him. He said nothing. Tessa began to cry without sound. I hugged her. She held on tightly, and for 1 weak second, I nearly agreed to stay another night. Then I saw the interior door standing open. I stepped away. Denise drove without speaking until Ben's house disappeared behind a row of maples. Paul's photograph rested on my lap, my fingers pressed around the imperfect walnut corner. At the first traffic light, Denise pushed her sunglasses onto her head. Do you want sympathy, agreement, or breakfast? Breakfast. Good. I'm much better at potatoes. She reached across the console and squeezed my wrist. Only then did I realize I had left Paul's chair behind. I almost asked Denise to turn around. The chair was ugly, inconvenient, and approximately as easy to move as a stubborn cow. It had also been the place where Paul drank his morning coffee, napped through television programs he insisted he was watching, and spent the final winter pretending he wasn't cold. Denise glanced at me. What? I left his chair. Whose chair? Paul's? At Ben's? Yes. Does the chair know your phone number? I looked at her. Then it can wait. It blocks the patio door. Apparently it has already begun resisting. The light changed. Denise drove on. She took me to a diner where the coffee was hot enough to remove fingerprints. We sat in a booth beneath a framed photograph of a cow. Paul's picture remained wrapped in my coat beside me because I refused to leave it in the car. Denise ordered eggs, bacon, toast, potatoes, and a cinnamon roll for the table, although she ate most of it herself. I ordered oatmeal. That is not breakfast, she said. It is served before noon, so is regret. When my bowl arrived, I stirred it without eating. The anger that had carried me out of Ben's house was beginning to wear thin, exposing everything underneath. I sold my house, I said. I recall. I moved into his. For 1 week, and now I live nowhere. You live with me until you decide otherwise. That is very kind. You say kind as though I've offered you an organ. I have a spare room. I don't want to become your problem. You'd need to work harder. I have significant problems. She poured syrup across her potatoes. I watched her. Is that one of them? No. This is a solution. Denise's house was a narrow brick place near the center of town, decorated as if every color had been given equal opportunity. The front room contained a violet sofa, orange curtains, and enough framed prints to hide structural damage. She had converted the second bedroom into what she called a guest sanctuary, and what most people would have called a room with a bed. The flamingo sheets were not subtle. I warned you, she said. I thought there would be fewer birds. There are fewer. The pillowcases are in the wash. She cleared a stack of gardening magazines from the dresser so I could set Paul's photograph there. His walnut frame looked severe among the coral walls and pink birds. I'll give you space, Denise said. Where will you be? Directly downstairs, giving you space loudly. She closed the door. I sat on the bed with my coat still on. From below came cabinet doors, running water, and the sound of Denise arguing with her radio. Her house was not quiet, but its noises did not belong to me. My phone held 3 messages from Tessa. Please let me know you arrived safely. I'm sorry. Ben is upset, but I think he needs time. There was nothing from Ben. I wrote, I'm safe. Thank you for the coffee. Tessa responded immediately with a red heart. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Caroline called before noon. What happened? Good morning to you, too. Ben said you left. He is observant. Mom, stop. The sharpness in her voice pulled me upright. I did not call you. I know. That's part of the problem. What did he tell you? That you packed your bags during the party because he moved Dad's photograph. That is an efficient version. Did you? I packed after the party. That is not the important distinction. It is if you're accusing me of performing for his friends. Caroline let out a long breath. I could hear the hollow acoustics of her car, though she was no longer driving. She must have pulled over. Why didn't you call me? Would you have offered me your spare room? You know you can stay here. You live 2 hours from everything I know, and Denise doesn't? Denise lives 12 minutes away. That isn't what I meant. I looked around the flamingo room. What did you mean? You make decisions, and then you tell people after there's no way to help. I asked Ben not to enter my room. I'm not defending that. You're about to. I'm saying leaving is not a conversation. It was the result of several. He built you an entire apartment, and then told me it was still his house when I tried to live in it. Because it is his house. I am aware of the property lines. Then what did you expect? The question hurt because I did not have a precise answer. I had expected privacy within proximity, gratitude without debt, and a family that could be close without constantly touching my life. Spoken aloud, it sounded less like an arrangement than a prayer. I expected him not to hide Paul, I said. Dad is dead, Mom. The words struck with unnecessary force. Caroline went silent. I know, I said. I didn't mean, I know exactly what you meant. No, you don't. I mean, he is not the photograph. Ben putting it in a wardrobe does not erase him. Then why did the photograph have to be hidden? Because Ben feels like Dad is in every room with you. He was my husband and our father. I waited. Her voice softened, but not enough. Sometimes you talk as if you're the only person who lost him. That is not fair. Neither is telling Ben, your father would have fixed that every time something breaks. Or your father never needed a recipe when he cooks. Or reminding him that Dad built furniture whenever Ben buys something. I don't say those things every time. You say them enough. I stood and walked to the window. Denise's backyard was full of late-season flowers collapsing under their own weight. Is that what Ben told you? I have ears. Apparently everyone has been holding meetings without me. No one is holding meetings. We've been trying not to hurt you. And how is that going? Caroline made a small, frustrated sound. You don't make room for anyone else to miss him imperfectly. I could have told her that Ben's imperfection included entering a locked suite and treating my bedroom like a showroom. I could have repeated every request, every package, every sentence. Instead, I heard the truth inside her accusation and hated it for arriving in her voice. I need to go, I said. Mom, I am in someone else's guest room, and I would like to be miserable privately. I love you. That seems to be everyone's final argument. I ended the call. For several minutes, I stood at the window with my hand over my mouth. Then I returned to the dresser and turned Paul's photograph face down. The gesture felt disloyal. I turned it upright again. Denise came in without knocking, took one look at me, backed out, and knocked on the open door. Better? No. She entered carrying 2 mugs. Was that Caroline? Yes. Did she come equipped with advice? She came equipped with artillery. Denise handed me tea. Children know where the walls are thin. They are not children. Adult children merely have better aim. I sat on the bed. She thinks I use Paul against Ben. Do you? That is not the response I was seeking. You didn't specify sympathy. I gave her a look over the mug. Denise sat beside me. You can be right about leaving and still have been wrong about other things. It's terribly inconvenient. I don't remember asking you to become wise. It happened when I stopped coloring my hair. My phone rang again. This time it was Tessa. I didn't know if you had your blood pressure pills, she said when I answered. I packed them. And your phone charger? Yes. Your car is here. I remembered that. I can bring it. I'll come get it. A pause. Ben is going to the hardware store around 3. I'm not avoiding him. I didn't say you were. No, you provided a schedule. She sighed. I'm trying to make this less awful. I know. Are you coming back for everything? Not today. The chair is still here. I know. Ben sat in it after you left. That silenced me. Tessa continued quickly. I don't know why I told you that. Neither do I. He hasn't said much. He said enough last night. I meant today. Denise watched me with no attempt to pretend she wasn't listening. I'll come at 2:30, I said. I need my car and some clothes. We'll be here. The we felt deliberate. Denise drove me back. Ben's car was in the driveway, although the hardware store was apparently expecting him. My own car sat beside it, recently washed. He had always washed my car when he borrowed it, even when I objected, especially then. Tessa opened the front door before we reached it. Ben stood behind her, holding my suitcase from the previous morning. His face was tired and unreadable. I packed the rest of the clothes from your wardrobe, he said. You entered the bedroom again. The door was open. I nearly laughed. Instead, I took the suitcase. "Thank you. Do you want the rest of it?" "Eventually." "Where are you putting it?" "I don't know yet." He looked past me at Denise. "So everything just stays here while Mom decides?" "Benjamin," Denise said, "I believe your mother is currently homeless." "I know that." "Do you?" "Denise," I said. She lifted both hands and walked back toward her car. Ben's jaw worked. "I can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Being treated like I forced you out. I have told everyone I left. You told me you left because of me. That is different from saying you forced me. It doesn't feel different." Tessa touched his arm. He moved away, not roughly, but enough for her hand to fall. "I'm not helping move everything twice," he said. "If you take it out, figure out where it's going." The sentence was practical and petty at once. "That's fair," I said. He had been prepared for a fight. My agreement left him standing without one. I took my car key from the hook by the interior hallway. The welcome card from Sunday dinner was still in my coat pocket. I felt its edge when I reached for my gloves. Before leaving, I looked down the stairs. Paul's chair faced the patio window. The carved bird remained on the shelf. Ben followed my gaze. "What do you want me to do with the chair?" he asked. "Sit in it," I said. Then I took my suitcase outside and drove away in the cleanest car I had ever owned. I drove 3 blocks before pulling into a pharmacy parking lot and crying hard enough to frighten myself. It was not graceful crying. My nose ran. My shoulders shook. I made a sound like a screen door in wind. A man returning a shopping cart glanced toward my car, then immediately decided his life would be better if he knew nothing about mine. When it passed, I found a packet of tissues in the glove compartment and discovered Ben had filled the gas tank. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. "Stop being thoughtful in pieces," I said to no one. At Denise's, I carried my suitcase upstairs and hung the clothes beside a row of empty wire hangers. The room had begun to look less like a sanctuary and more like evidence of poor planning. My toiletries surrounded her ceramic flamingo soap dish. My books leaned against Paul's photograph. A pair of shoes blocked the closet because the door opened the wrong way. Denise stood in the doorway eating an apple. "You can stay as long as you need. People say that when they can still see the floor. I have lived through worse. Your niece stayed here for 6 months." "Exactly." "What happened?" She started labeling my shelves. I looked at the labels on her hallway linen cabinet. "Those are useful," Denise said. Her attitude was the problem. I spent Monday calling apartment buildings. The first manager asked whether I had pets, smoked, or played drums. I said no 3 times and was briefly offended by how uninteresting I sounded. The second place had an elevator but no windows in the living room. The manager called it an interior-facing design. "It faces a wall," I said. "A courtyard wall. There is no courtyard. There's a plan for one." I thanked him and left. The third apartment was in a complex where everything was beige, including the woman showing it. She praised the emergency pull cords in every room and the weekly card games. I had nothing against emergency cords or cards, but the place smelled like boiled vegetables and surrender. On the drive back, I passed a "For Rent" sign taped inside the window of a florist shop. The shop was called Second Bloom. The name was almost offensive enough to keep me outside. Then the door opened and a woman backed onto the sidewalk carrying a galvanized bucket full of sunflowers. She was perhaps 50, with cropped black hair and an apron wet across the front. One sunflower struck her in the face. "Could you hold the door?" she asked. I did. After setting the bucket down, she followed my gaze to the sign. "Apartments upstairs," she said. "2 bedrooms if you lie to yourself. 1 if you value honesty." "How many stairs?" 17. "Exactly?" I own a flower shop. Numbers matter when people order roses. Her name was Lila Moreno. She led me through a narrow door at the back of the shop and up a staircase that turned sharply halfway. By step 12, my right knee had filed a complaint. By 17, I had begun composing Ben's objection. The apartment was small and full of light. The living room had 3 tall windows overlooking the street. The kitchen cabinets were painted a deep green and none of them matched perfectly. The bedroom fit a queen bed if the bedroom door remained open. What Lila had called the second bedroom was a wide closet with a window. "There's no elevator," she said. I noticed. "The plumbing knocks when the shop sink runs. I have experience with conversational pipes. No laundry in the unit. Machines are in the basement. More stairs. Different stairs." She opened one of the living room windows. Cool air moved through the apartment carrying the smell of damp leaves and cut stems. The rent was higher than I wanted, lower than the beige complex, and included heat. I could afford it because the proceeds from my house sat untouched except for the moving expenses. That money was not a fortune. It was 36 years of equity translated into a number that needed to last. "What's wrong with it?" I asked. "Besides the stairs?" "Yes." "The floor slopes toward the kitchen. If you drop a grape, it will leave." I looked across the sunlit room and pictured Paul's photograph on the low bookcase beneath the window. The round table would fit between the kitchen and living room. His chair might fit if I surrendered either the sofa or the ability to walk in a straight line. "I'd like to think about it." Lila nodded. "Think quickly." "A man named Greg is coming at 4, and he described himself as a content creator. I'll take it." She laughed. "Fear is an excellent decision-making tool. I paid the deposit that afternoon. Denise studied the key on my palm when I returned. That was fast. You told me not to label your shelves. I said my niece had an attitude. The distinction could take months to understand." She followed me into the kitchen. "Where is it?" "Above Second Bloom." "The florist?" "Yes." "There are stairs. I counted them." "Does Ben know?" I did not realize he had become the municipal stair authority. "He will ask. He may ask me himself." He did not. Tessa called that evening. She had heard about the apartment from Caroline, who had heard from Denise because I had not called either of my children. Denise claimed she was sharing joy, not information. "Above a store?" Tessa asked. "A florist." "That sounds lovely." "It is. Ben says the stairs are steep." I closed my eyes. So Ben does know. He drove by. Why? He wanted to see it. He could have called. I told him that. What did he say? That calling would make it seem like he approves. Thank goodness he protected us from that misunderstanding. Tessa went quiet. "I'm sorry," I said. "You don't deserve to carry messages between us. I'd prefer neither of you used me that way. So would I." "Then call him. He has my number." "That isn't an answer." "It is the only one I have tonight. She told me she loved me before hanging up. I nearly said something bitter, caught it in time, and told her I loved her too." Carolyn waited until the next morning to call. "Are you sure about the stairs?" "Good morning." I said good morning in a message. I didn't know greetings could be delegated. She sighed. "I'm trying." "So am I." "What's the lease term?" 1 year. "And if you hate it, I will have made a mistake. You say that as if mistakes are free. They are not." Neither was moving into Ben's house. Caroline let several seconds pass. "Do you need help?" The question was cautious, almost formal. "With what?" "Moving. Packing. Anything. I'm hiring movers. Because Ben won't help? Because the furniture is heavy and I have money to pay people." "Mom." He told me he would not move everything twice. I told him that was fair. He was angry. So was I. Somehow only one of us is being treated as weather. I didn't say that. "No, but you keep explaining him to me as if I cannot see him." Caroline's voice cooled. "Fine. Hire movers. I will. Let me know when you're settled. I will." We ended politely, which felt worse than arguing. The movers were available Thursday. Ben and Tessa would both be at work. I chose the time deliberately, then resented him for not knowing that. Denise came with me to let them into the suite. The interior door was locked from the upstairs side, but my patio key still worked. The rooms looked exactly as I had left them, except Paul's chair now faced slightly toward the kitchenette. A coffee mug sat on the table beside it. Tessa's mug. World's okayest mother-in-law. Denise noticed. Is that yours? It was a gift. Are you taking it? No. Why? Because I am trying not to steal from my daughter-in-law while protesting respect for personal property. That's disappointingly consistent. The movers carried out my bed, round table, dresser, boxes, books, and kitchen things. I wrapped the one-winged bird myself and placed it in my car. Paul's chair presented a problem. It won't fit up that staircase, the lead mover said after I showed him a photograph of the turn. It fit through narrower doors before. Doors don't bend upward. Denise ran her hand over the chair's cracked arm. You hate this thing, I'm aware. Leave it. I already did that once. The mover measured it. If they remove the back and footrest mechanism, it might clear the turn. The additional labor would cost almost as much as the chair was worth. Do it, I said. Denise raised an eyebrow. It has sentimental value. You complained about it yesterday. That is the sentiment. They dismantled the chair. At the apartment, every piece of furniture revealed a new problem. The round table blocked a cabinet. My dresser covered an electrical outlet. The bed left 9 inches between its foot and the wall. The tool boxes filled most of the little second room. The chair made it up the stairs in 3 pieces. When the movers reassembled it, the footrest no longer closed without a kick. It has always required persuasion, I said. By late afternoon, cardboard crowded every wall. I sat in the chair with a paper cup of coffee while Denise unpacked dishes, despite repeated instructions not to. This cabinet sticks, she called. They all do. Did you inspect anything before paying? The windows. She came into the living room holding 2 unmatched plates. Are you happy? No. Good. I stared at her. Happy on moving day is suspicious. It means you've confused adrenaline with a life decision. What am I supposed to feel? Tired, frightened, irritated with me. I have achieved all 3. Then you're settling in. She left at 7 after stocking my refrigerator with eggs, bread, cheese, and syrup I would never put on potatoes. The apartment became quiet in a way her house had not been. Below me, Lila dragged buckets across the shop floor and locked the front door. Then even that stopped. I opened a box marked living room and found the welcome card Tessa had placed at my dinner setting. Welcome home. A tiny key beneath the words. I set it inside a kitchen drawer. Paul's photograph stood temporarily on the floor, leaning against a box. I unpacked the low bookcase, pushed it beneath the window, and placed the frame on top. The room changed immediately, not because Paul was in it. Ben was right about that. Paul was not in the walnut, glass, or paper. He was not trapped behind his own smile, waiting for me to choose the correct shelf. The room changed because I had chosen. My phone rang. For one hopeful second, I thought it was Ben. It was a recorded call about extending my car warranty. I listened until the recording asked me to press 1. Then I hung up, sat in Paul's broken chair, and ate cheese over the sink because I had not yet found the crackers. I found the crackers the next morning in a box labeled bathroom. This was not the mover's fault. I had packed the last kitchen items after midnight and apparently reached the stage where all rectangles seemed related. I ate too with coffee beside the window. Below me, Lila arranged buckets on the sidewalk. Every time the shop door opened, the bell produced a bright double chime. People came in carrying nothing and left holding color. The apartment looked less promising in morning light. Scratches marked the floor where previous tenants had dragged furniture. One kitchen drawer opened only if I lifted it first. The living room windows let in sunshine, traffic, and every conversation held within 20 feet of the florist. At 8:20, a man beneath my window told someone on his phone that he had never respected Gary. I wanted details. By 10, I had unpacked the dishes and found places for almost half of them. The rest went into boxes beneath the round table. I opened Paul's toolboxes in the narrow second room and arranged the hand tools on 2 shelves. His wooden mallet fit my hand badly. Everything had been chosen for fingers longer and stronger than mine. The one-winged bird stood beside the window, still resembling produce. Lila came upstairs carrying a short wooden plant stand with one leg wobbling. "You said you knew furniture," she said. "I said my husband did. You also said you helped. I held things and offered criticism." "Excellent. Those are the 2 stages of craftsmanship." She set the stand on my floor. It was oak beneath several layers of white paint. One joint had separated, and someone had attempted to repair it with a nail driven at an angle. "Can you fix it?" "Probably." "What do you charge?" "I don't." "That sounds like poor business." "It is not a business." "Then I'll trade you flowers." "I don't need flowers. No one needs flowers." "That's why I stay in business." She left before I agreed. I carried the stand into the little room and opened Paul's coffee can of screws. The smell of wood dust and machine oil rose from the boxes. For several minutes I stood there seeing his hands sort through the same screws, saving bent ones in case civilization collapsed, and only he could repair it. I heard myself say, "Paul would know which glue." Then I looked toward his photograph in the living room. Caroline's accusation had followed me up all 17 stairs. I drove to the hardware store and asked an employee which glue to use. He was younger than Ben, older than my patients, and very serious about curing time. I listened. I bought clamps small enough for my hands and repaired the stand without consulting a dead man. The joint was not perfect. It held. Lila paid me with yellow tulips and a sandwich from the cafe next door. I put the tulips beside Paul's photograph, then moved them to the round table, because not everything attractive needed to become part of his display. That evening, Denise and I walked 4 blocks before my knee began complaining. She offered to slow down. "I am not fragile," I said. "Your right leg has developed a limp. It is expressing an opinion. Perhaps you should have chosen the elevator. Perhaps you should have chosen less judgmental shoes." Her shoes were metallic silver. "They're supportive," she said. "They look like emergency blankets." We walked another block. The town center was close enough that I could reach the grocery store, pharmacy, library, and 3 restaurants without driving. At Ben's house, every errand had required a car. He had called the distance peaceful. I had called it nothing because I was trying to be grateful. At a crosswalk, Denise took my arm without making an announcement. "Has he called?" she asked. "No. Have you?" "No." "Excellent. 2 generations of emotional excellence. He is not obligated to call me. Neither is the warranty company, yet they managed." I looked at her. "You heard that. You told me. I need more interesting stories." Tessa arrived Saturday with a casserole, a bag of groceries, and the long white platter. "I thought you might want this," she said. "It is mine. That's why I brought it." "You carried a platter up 17 stairs to return it? The casserole is on it. Efficient." She stood in the living room taking in the boxes and Paul's chair. She wore a green sweater and no makeup. Without the polished surface she presented to most of the world, she looked younger and more tired. "This is nice," she said. "It is." She smiled faintly. "You sounded like you meant it." "I do?" Her eyes found Paul's photograph on the bookcase. She did not look away or comment. Instead, she touched the carved bird. "You brought the potato. It has seniority. We ate casserole at the round table. It contained chicken, rice, mushrooms, and an amount of cheese, suggesting Tessa had been raised to consider dairy a form of apology. "Ben hates mushrooms," I said. "I know. You made this at home?" "Yes." "Were you angry?" "Yes." I took another bite. "Delicious." She laughed, then covered her mouth as though laughter might be disloyal. "How is he?" I asked. "Angry?" That was not what I asked. "He's also hurt. And embarrassed. He keeps saying he doesn't understand how one bad night became the whole story. It did not." "I know." "Do you?" Tessa placed her fork down. "The house is different without you. I was there 1 week. You were supposed to be there longer." The sentence trembled at the end. "I miss you," she said. "I miss coming downstairs. I miss knowing you're there. I even miss your mustard being in the wrong place. The door is the correct place. This is not about condiments. Most family problems eventually are." Her eyes filled. She blinked the tears away impatiently. Ben sits in that empty suite after work. In Paul's chair? Sometimes. I look toward it. The cracked brown arm caught the afternoon light. He thinks you're waiting for him to beg, she said. I'm waiting for him to speak honestly. He thinks he did. He said it was his house. That was honest. You know what I mean? No, I said. That phrase has caused enough trouble. Tessa folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. He doesn't know how to talk to you without feeling like he's being graded. I did not realize I was grading him. You compare him to Paul. Caroline said the same thing. Maybe two people can notice one thing. I leaned back, and perhaps an entire family can notice everything except a locked door. That's not fair. No, it is not. We sat with the mushrooms. Before she left, Tessa hugged me in the narrow hallway. She held on, but I released her first. Call him, she said. I'll think about it. Will you? Yes. I did think about it. I thought about it while washing the casserole dish. I thought about it while carrying laundry down 2 sets of stairs and back up again. I thought about it while sitting in Paul's chair with my knee wrapped in ice. I did not call. Ben called Tuesday at 6:30. I nearly dropped the phone. Hello? Do you have Dad's voltage tester? No greeting. No question about the apartment. I have 6 boxes of tools. You will need to describe it. Yellow. About the size of a remote. 2 black leads. What do you need it for? The outlet in the guest room is dead. You should turn off the breaker before doing anything. I know. Paul always. I stopped. Ben noticed the unfinished sentence. Silence spread between us. I think it's in the box marked electrical, I said. Can I come get it? I looked around the apartment. 2 lamps were on, but the room still felt dim. Do you want to see me or do you need something? What kind of question is that? A clear one. I called because I need the tester. Then the answer is something. He exhaled. Mom, I'm trying. You called for a tool, I could buy another one. That might be simpler. Do you want me to come or not? I want you to know why you're coming. His voice sharpened. This is exactly what I mean. Everything is a test. No, some things are voltage testers. He almost laughed. I heard it catch and disappear. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. He arrived in 18. I buzzed him through the flower shop's side door. By the time he reached the top, he was breathing harder than he wanted me to notice. These stairs are dangerous. Hello, Ben. They're narrow. So is the womb. You managed. He stared at me, then laughed once despite himself. Hello, Mom. He stood inside the apartment but kept his jacket on. His eyes traveled across the round table, dresser, boxes, and bookcase. They stopped at Paul's photograph. I waited for him to say something. He looked away. The tools are in here. I led him into the second room. Ben crouched beside the boxes and opened the one marked electrical. He found the tester within seconds. Dad labeled everything inside, he said. He did enjoy labels. Ben turned the device over and pressed the power button. Nothing happened. Batteries dead. There are batteries in the kitchen drawer. He followed me, changed it, and tested the tester against an outlet. The screen lit. Do you want coffee? I asked. He glanced at the clock above the stove. I should get back, of course. He walked into the living room and stopped beside Paul's chair. You brought it. I paid people to dismantle it. Must have cost more than it's worth. Yes. He pressed the footrest lever. It sprang out and struck his shin. Damn it. I laughed before I could stop myself. That thing has always hated me, he said. It senses moral weakness. He sat down. The chair leaned slightly to the left, fitting his body the way it had fit Paul's. Ben rested the voltage tester on his knee. His eyes moved to the photograph. You put it right in the middle, he said. The bookcase is against the window. You know what I mean. I know you keep looking at it. He stood so quickly the footrest remained extended. Do you ever hear yourself? Frequently. The walls are thin. You moved out, dragged all this stuff upstairs, and set up Dad's picture like proof you won. Won what? The right to make me the son who rejected his father. I have not told anyone that. You don't have to. You just sit there looking wounded while everyone decides what I did. You did reject his photograph. That is not Dad. You keep saying that as if I believe otherwise. Then stop using it against me. I stood, too. I have not said one word about it since you arrived. You didn't need to. There it was again. My silence committing offenses on my behalf. Go fix your outlet, I said. Ben picked up the tester. At the door, he turned. For 1 second, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, Dad would have hated those stairs. The words were meant to wound, but they struck something else. I looked at my son standing in a doorway too small for his shoulders. Yes, I said, he would have. Ben flinched as though I had agreed with more than the stairs. Then he left, carrying the tool Paul had labeled and the sentence I should never have finished for him. The tester left a clean rectangle in the dust on my kitchen counter. I wiped around it, then wiped the rectangle away. Below me, the flower shop bell chimed twice. Lila's voice rose in greeting, followed by a man asking whether white roses meant forgiveness. I leaned toward the open window. They mean you should apologize with words, Lila told him. I liked her more every day. Ben did not call to say the outlet had been repaired. I did not call to ask. At 9 that evening, he sent a message. Tester works. I wrote, good. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again, then disappeared completely. I set the phone beside Paul's photograph and immediately felt as though I had staged them together. I moved the phone to the round table. On Friday, Lila brought me a chair from the shop. It was a delicate thing with a woven seat and 1 loose spindle. This is not a furniture hospital, I said. Then why is there sawdust on your stairs? Because I swept poorly. She placed the chair in my workroom. A customer leaned on it and nearly became part of an orchid display. Does anyone sit in a florist shop? People receiving bad news. I tested the loose spindle. This will take a few days. I'm in no hurry. Bad news can stand. Caroline called while I was sanding the spindle. I'd like to come tomorrow, she said. You don't need permission to visit. I thought permission was important now. Her tone was light, but not light enough. It is important to know whether someone will be home. Will you? Yes. Can I bring lunch? Yes. Can Tessa come? The sandpaper stopped in my hand. Did she ask? No. I asked her. Why? Because I'm tired of speaking to everyone separately and discovering I've said the wrong version. Is Ben coming? I did not ask him. That answer was too quick. Caroline, he knows Tessa is coming. What he does with that information is his problem. You have inherited your brother's approach to invitations. I am asking. I looked into the living room. 4 adults around my round table would be crowded. 5 would become geometry. Bring Tessa, I said. If Ben wants to come, he needs to call me. He won't. Then we will have lunch without him. Caroline arrived Saturday carrying 3 paper bags from an Italian restaurant and a brass table lamp I had not seen since leaving my house. I found this in Ben's garage, she said. It was your father's. I gathered that from the masking tape labeled Paul. I thought everything from the garage was downstairs. Some things weren't. I took the lamp. Paul had rewired it years earlier and placed a piece of green felt beneath the base. It had stood on his workbench until the final months, when he could no longer manage the garage steps. Did Ben know you took it? He watched me. What did he say? That you don't have room. I'm beginning to suspect he believes space is a moral issue. Caroline surveyed the apartment. He's not entirely wrong. Goodbye. She laughed and hugged me. The embrace lasted past the joke. You okay? She asked. No. Me neither. Tessa arrived with salad, wine, and no husband. She kissed my cheek, then placed her shoes neatly beside the door, as if worried they might claim too much floor. He said he wasn't coming, she told Caroline. I didn't ask, I said. He wanted me to make that clear. Then we have achieved clarity. We unpacked lunch. Caroline had ordered enough pasta for a church basement. Tessa opened the windows when steam from the containers fogged the glass. The smell of garlic traveled downstairs, and Lila called up that we were cruel. I brought her a plate. When I returned, Ben was standing in my living room. He still wore his jacket. The yellow voltage tester lay on the table. "I came to return this," he said. "You could have kept it. I don't need it anymore." Tessa watched him with an expression containing relief and annoyance in equal measure. "Are you staying?" Caroline asked. "I wasn't invited." "I told you to call," I said. He glanced toward the food. "I can go." No one stopped him immediately. It was an unfortunate half-second. Then Tessa pulled out the empty chair. "Sit down, Ben." He took off his jacket. We ate with our elbows carefully managed. Ben sat opposite Paul's photograph, though I had not assigned seats. He kept his eyes on his plate. Caroline discussed traffic. Tessa described a client who wanted to remodel a bathroom around a sink she did not yet own. I told them about Lila's chair and the nearly injured orchid customer. "You're repairing furniture now?" Ben asked. "I'm repairing a chair, with Dad's tools, with tools that belonged to him and now belong to me." His fork scraped his plate. Tessa poured him more water. "The shop downstairs is sweet." "Nice location," he said. "Mom can walk everywhere," Caroline added, "except up the stairs. I can walk up them. Today." There was concern in his voice. It came out shaped like criticism, as it often did. "I did not invite you here to inspect my decline," I said. "You didn't invite me." Tessa shut her eyes. Caroline put down her fork. "Would you two like to choose a different argument? We've heard this one." "Caroline," Ben said. "No, honestly. Mom, the stairs are terrible. Ben, she knows. She moved here anyway. Can we continue?" We did, badly. After lunch, Caroline plugged in Paul's lamp. The cream shade cast warm light across the bookcase. "Dad would have liked this apartment," she said. "All these windows." Ben laughed without humor. Caroline looked at him. "What?" "Nothing. You made a sound." "I'm just impressed you still know what he would have liked." "Oh, for God's sake." "What?" "Stop acting like Dad belongs only to whatever you're angry about." Ben's face changed. Tessa reached for his arm, but he pulled it back. "You got to say goodbye," he said. The room went still. Traffic moved below the windows. The flower shop bell rang twice. Caroline's mouth opened. "Ben, you were there. Mom was there. You both stood around his bed and said everything you needed to say. That is not what happened. It's close enough." "No, it isn't." "You held his hand." "Yes. And you told me afterward how peaceful it was. Because you asked me." "I didn't ask for every detail." "You called me 3 times that night because I needed to know." "Then don't punish me for answering." Ben pushed back from the table. The chair struck the wall. "I'm not punishing you. You've barely spoken to me about Dad in 3 years. Because when I do, one of you tells me what he would think." His eyes moved from Caroline to me. I felt the accusation arrive before he spoke. "You didn't make it to the hospital," I said quietly. "I know, I never blamed you. You didn't have to." "Ben, you called me at 6. I saw it. I turned the phone over because I'd already told him I'd come that night, and I was tired. I had been there 4 nights that week, and every time I left, you looked at me like I'd failed some test. I did not. You did. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe you never know." Tessa's hand covered her mouth. Ben continued, the words coming faster now. "Dad called me himself at 7:15. I let it go to voicemail. He said not to worry, he'd see me tomorrow. He died before 9. I remembered standing beside Paul's bed watching the clock. I remembered telling him Ben was probably parking, then telling him traffic was bad, then stopping because Paul no longer seemed to hear me. I had carried those details carefully, believing I was protecting my son by never saying them. Ben had been carrying them too. When I got there, he said, "You were sitting beside him, and Caroline was crying, and Dad was already gone. His glasses were still on the table. That stupid retirement photograph was in the hospital bag because you'd brought it for some reason. I thought he might like familiar things. He couldn't even see it. I know. And after the funeral, every time something broke, you said Dad would have fixed it. Every meal, Dad made it differently. Every decision, Dad would have known. Do you have any idea what that sounds like when the last thing your father ever asked was for you to come see him, and you didn't? The photograph seemed suddenly too bright beneath Paul's lamp. Caroline was crying. Ben, none of us thought you did it on purpose. I did, not him dying. But I chose not to answer. You were exhausted. So was Mom. She answered. I stood. I was his wife, and I was his son. The force in his voice stopped me. He looked at the frame. I didn't want that picture in the suite because every time I see him laughing, I hear the voicemail. I hear him saying tomorrow like he believed he had one, and then you look at me, and I know exactly which one of us showed up. Ben. I have never blamed you for that night. You blamed me for 1,000 smaller things, using his name. I wanted to deny it. Instead, I heard myself telling him Paul would have known which wall needed repair, how much salt went in the stew, why the car made that noise. Tiny remarks I had offered as memories, tiny cuts he had received as a verdict. Tessa rose. We should go. Ben grabbed his jacket. Wait, I said. He looked at me, breathing hard. You were wrong to enter my room, I said. You were wrong to hide the photograph and make my home conditional on your grief. His face closed. And I was wrong, I continued, to make your father the answer to every question you got differently. No one moved. I'm sorry, I said. Ben looked almost angry at the apology. That doesn't fix it. No, and I'm not asking you to move back. I know. He left. Tessa followed after squeezing my hand once. Caroline remained at the table, wiping her face with a paper napkin. I went to the window and watched Ben emerge onto the sidewalk. He stood beneath the Second Bloom sign while Tessa spoke to him. Then he covered his face with both hands. I picked up my phone and called him. He did not answer. When the voicemail began, I said, I don't blame you for missing that night. I am sorry I made every day afterwards sound like I did. I am not moving back, and I am not putting Paul away. Both things can be true. My voice broke. I wish you had answered him, I said. I also know he loved you when you didn't. Then I ended the call before I could turn forgiveness into another instruction. Caroline stayed after the pasta went cold. She gathered plates, wiped the table, and washed dishes without asking where anything belonged. I dried beside her. We worked quietly until she handed me the long white platter. I'm sorry I said Dad was dead. He is. I said it to stop the conversation. You succeeded. She placed a saucepan in the drying rack. I thought if I made it sound simple, you'd stop making it complicated. Your brother has been trying the same method. I know. Does he talk to you about that night? Not until today. I looked at her. He asked me questions afterward, she said. What Dad said. Whether he was awake, whether he seemed scared. Ben made me repeat everything until I realized he wasn't trying to understand what happened. He was trying to find the exact minute when it became too late. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you knew. I knew he felt guilty. I did not know he listened to that voicemail every time he saw his father's face. Maybe you didn't want to know. The words were gentle. They still reached their target. I dried the platter and put it away. I wanted everyone to survive. We did. That is not the same as being all right. No. Caroline leaned against the counter. Do you remember what you said when Ben offered to make the funeral arrangements? I did not. You said Dad had already told you what he wanted, and Ben would only complicate it. My hand tightened around the dish towel. I was overwhelmed. I know. He asked about flowers, and I could barely remember my own address. I know that too. I was not trying to shut him out. You did anyway. That was becoming an exhausting feature of honesty. Intentions stood at the door looking respectable, while consequences had already broken the furniture. I made Paul impossible after he died, I said. Caroline's face softened. He helped. Despite everything, I laughed. She continued. Dad had strong opinions. He could make ordering a sandwich feel like an ethical decision. He once sent soup back because the spoon was wrong. What was wrong with it? He said it had dessert proportions. Caroline laughed, then covered her eyes. I miss him. So do I. This time, neither of us treated the sentence like a claim requiring proof. Before she left, Caroline walked to the bookcase and picked up the photograph. The lower left joint shifted beneath her thumb. Mom, this corner is loose. It has always been wrong. No, it's separating. I took the frame. A hairline gap had opened along the joint. The glass remained secure, but the walnut flexed when I pressed it. It probably happened during the move. Which one? That is an impolite question. She offered to take it to a framing shop. I said no too quickly. All right, she said. I was only offering. I know. I set the photograph back on the bookcase, angling it so the damaged corner rested against the wall. Caroline put on her coat. At the door, she stopped. You meant what you told Ben about not moving back? Yes, even if he apologizes. Yes. She studied me, perhaps deciding whether this was another punishment. I like this apartment, I said. I dislike the stairs and the laundry basement. I miss Tessa's kitchen. I miss hearing people above me. I do not miss wondering whether a closed door will remain closed. Caroline nodded. I understand. I'm not asking you to agree. I know. That may be why I understand. Ben did not respond to my voicemail that day or the next. He had listened. My phone showed the message had been delivered, which was both useful and cruel. Every time the screen lit, I expected his name. Instead, I received 2 weather alerts, a reminder from my dentist, and a photograph Denise sent of a potato shaped like a duck. I spent Monday repairing Lila's chair. The spindle held after I removed the clamp. I reinforced the joint, touched up the scratches, and carried it downstairs. Lila placed it near the orchid display. What do I owe you? Nothing. She folded her arms. I reject your business model. I used half an ounce of glue and knowledge, mostly fear. Fear is billable. She insisted on giving me a key to the shop's back door so I could use the work table in her storage room for larger projects. I refused twice. She put the key beside my coffee and walked away. The next morning, a customer sat in the repaired chair while writing a sympathy card. It did not collapse. I considered that a professional triumph. My days began taking shape without anyone assigning them. I walked with Denise after breakfast, more slowly than either of us admitted. I helped Lila strip paint from the plant stand. I carried my laundry down to the basement on Tuesdays and cursed each stair individually on the way back. I bought 2 secondhand lamps, returned one, and learned the green kitchen drawer opened more easily if I struck it with my hip. When Tessa called to ask whether I could explain to Ben that she had not betrayed him by telling me about the hospital, I said no. You don't have to take my side, she said. I'm not taking anyone's. You hate when people say that. I do. I am also trying it. She sighed. He thinks I discuss things that were private. Then you and he should discuss that. I'm asking for help. You're asking me to stand between you. The silence that followed felt unfriendly but necessary. You're right, she said at last. I can still listen if you need to talk about how you feel. That sounds suspiciously healthy. I don't care for it. She laughed. We spoke for another 10 minutes without discussing Ben. Caroline called the following evening and asked me to tell him she was sorry for pushing at lunch. No, I said. Did you just refuse before I finished? Yes. You could be less pleased with yourself. I'm not pleased. I'm tired. Fine. I'll call him. Good. The family had spent years using me as a hallway. Everyone entered through a different door, left their message, and expected it to arrive elsewhere without conflict. Closing the hallway made the house feel smaller, but at least I could hear my own thoughts. On Thursday morning, my phone rang while I was applying oil to the plant stand. Ben's name appeared. I wiped my hands for so long that the call nearly ended. Hello? Are you busy? Yes. Oh, I can still talk. What are you doing? Repairing furniture. With Lila? In her back room. A pause. Who's Lila? The florist. I know she's the florist. I didn't know you were working for her. I'm not working for her. What are you doing? Apparently failing to establish a business model. He laughed quietly but unmistakably. I waited. I got your message, he said. I assumed. I didn't know what to say. You could say that. I just did. The oil on the cloth had begun soaking through to my fingers. Do you want something? I asked. His breath changed. You mean a tool? I mean, are you calling because you need something or because you want to talk to me? I want to see you. My throat tightened. When? Today? I'll be upstairs after 4. I can come at 5. All right? He arrived at 5:12 carrying nothing. That mattered more than it should have. He climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the railing. When I opened the door, he was not out of breath. He had probably waited on the landing until he could conceal it. Hello, he said. Hello, can I come in? Yes. He removed his shoes without being asked and placed them beside the door. The apartment was tidier than during his first visit. Most boxes had disappeared. I had moved the round table 6 inches toward the window, which allowed the kitchen cabinet to open halfway. Ben noticed everything. He said nothing about the stairs, the chair, or Paul's photograph. Coffee? I asked. Yes. I poured 2 mugs. We sat at the table. Outside, a delivery truck blocked traffic while 3 drivers communicated their disappointment. I listened to your message 6 times, Ben said. That seems excessive. I kept waiting for the part where you explained what I was supposed to do. I was trying not to. I noticed. He wrapped both hands around the mug. I was wrong to go into your suite, he said, and your bedroom. I waited. I was wrong to move the picture. Yes. His eyes flicked toward it, then back to me. I knew it mattered to you. That was part of why I moved it. The honesty was ugly enough to believe. You wanted to win. I wanted control of one thing. Everyone was coming over. The rooms didn't look finished. The boxes were everywhere. And Dad's picture was on the dresser like... He stopped. Like what? Like he was going to see everything I'd done and know why I did it. Why did you? Because I wanted you close. Because I was worried about you because you made dinner and dealt with repairmen and made the house feel less empty. You had not told me about the last 2. I didn't tell myself about the last 2. He stared into his coffee. I thought if I made the suite perfect, you'd be happy there. Then you kept bringing in things from the old house, and it felt like nothing I built was enough. It was not supposed to replace what I left. I know that now. You built a room for a mother who had no inconvenient belongings, no habits, and no dead husband. I know. You called it mine until I disagreed with you. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. I know. The apology did not produce the release I had imagined. It sat between us, requiring work. I should not have compared you to your father, I said, especially when I was asking you to do things for me. You compared everyone to him. That is not better. No, I made him sound easier in death than he was in life. Ben looked toward the brass lamp. He hated that lamp, he said. He called it gloomy. Then why did he keep it? He won it in an argument with a neighbor. Ben smiled into his mug. That sounds like him. We sat quietly. I'm not coming back, I said. I know. The suite is beautiful. I know. It is also not my home. His smile disappeared. I know. He left 20 minutes later. At the door, he asked whether he could come again. Yes. Do I need to call? Yes. He nodded. As he turned toward the stairs, he noticed the gap in the photograph's frame. What happened to the corner? It loosened during one of the moves. Ben crossed the room and examined it without touching. That's the joint Dad said was fine. It has been holding a grudge. The glue failed. So Caroline informed me. I can repair it. The offer frightened me in a way I could not defend. I could take it to a framer. You could. But you think you can do it. I know how he built it. I looked at Paul laughing behind the glass, then at the hands Ben had learned to use beside his. "You moved it once without permission," I said. "I know. If I give it to you, you bring it back." "Yes. You don't put it in a wardrobe." His face tightened with shame. "I won't." I lifted the photograph from the bookcase and placed it in his hands. Ben held it against his chest, careful of the loose corner. For the first time since I had asked where it would stand, my son carried his father's photograph out of a room because I had let him. The empty space on the bookcase bothered me more than I expected. A pale rectangle marked where the frame had protected the wood from sunlight. I considered putting the tulips there, but that felt like disguising the absence. I left it empty. Ben called the following evening. "I took the back off," he said. "It took me a second to understand he meant the frame. Did you break anything?" "No. You sound defensive. You asked if I broke anything. What did you find?" "The lower joint separated almost completely. The other corners are loose too. I only saw one. You can't see them from the front. That seems to be a recurring family problem." He was quiet, then laughed. "I'm going to clean the old glue and reset the corners," he said. "It needs to stay clamped overnight." "You sound like your father." The silence came quickly. I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I'm trying not to do that. I know. It comes out before I hear it. He taught me how to reset a frame. That is why you sound like him." "I know." We stayed on the phone while he described the repair. I could hear small tools touching a hard surface and Tessa moving in the background. At one point, she asked whether he wanted tea. He said yes and thanked her. "Dad made me redo that left corner 4 times, Ben said. You were furious. I thought he was being impossible." He was. He kept saying the saw wasn't square. The saw was fine. I know that now. "Did you know it then?" "No. I blamed the saw for years." I sat in Paul's chair, smiling toward the pale rectangle on the bookcase. "Do you remember why you chose walnut?" I asked. "Dad said it was what he had. He bought that board the week before your birthday. Ben stopped moving things. He told me it was scrap. He wanted the gift to be yours." The line went quiet except for his breathing. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. "All right. Good night, Mom. Good night, Ben." The photograph stayed with him for 6 days. He called twice to report progress and once because he wanted to tell me the glue had cured, which did not require a phone call but was welcome anyway. On the 7th day, he climbed my stairs carrying the frame inside a padded blanket. The walnut had been cleaned and oiled. The corners sat tight, including the left joint that had never been fine. Ben had not sanded away the small marks Paul left while building it. The glass was new. "I replaced the backing," he said. "The old clips were rusted." He placed the photograph on my round table and waited. I lifted it. Paul looked exactly as he had before, caught mid-laugh and unaware that 3 people would someday fight over where his face was allowed to stand. "You did good work," I said. Ben looked at the corner. "It's square now. Your father would complain that you removed its character." His mouth tightened. I put the frame down. I did it again. "He would complain," Ben said. "Yes, and he'd be wrong. Frequently." The tension left his shoulders. I returned the photograph to the bookcase. Ben watched me adjust it until the frame stood straight. "Would you mind if I made a copy?" he asked. I turned. "Of the picture," he said, "not the frame. I can build another frame." "Why?" The question came out more suspicious than curious. Ben did not retreat from it. "I want one." "For where?" He glanced at the photograph. "I've been using the kitchenette downstairs as a workbench." "The suite?" "There's good light, and the sliding shelves hold tools. I thought they were for heavy appliances. They're surprisingly versatile." "Does Tessa know you're turning her Riverstone sanctuary into a workshop?" She suggested it. I tried to picture the immaculate kitchenette with clamps across the counter and sawdust settling into the tasteful gray grout. "What are you making?" "Nothing yet. An ambitious potato?" "Maybe." He put his hands in his pockets. I don't want to leave the rooms empty like I'm waiting for you to change your mind. I'm not going to. I know if you use them, it doesn't mean you won. I know. It also doesn't mean I did. His eyes met mine. I know. I looked at Paul's laughing face. You may make a copy. Thank you. Do not choose a gray frame. He smiled. I wouldn't dare. Our relationship did not repair as neatly as the walnut. Ben still gave advice before asking whether I wanted it. I still heard myself beginning sentences with his father's name. Sometimes I stopped too sharply, making the absence more obvious than the comparison would have been. One afternoon, he brought coffee and found me kicking the green kitchen drawer shut. Dad would have fixed that, I said. Ben froze. Then I added, after ignoring it for 6 months and blaming the humidity. He laughed so hard he spilled coffee on the sloping floor. It ran toward the kitchen. I warned you about grapes, I said. Grapes? Never mind. He helped me wipe it up. He began calling before he came, even when he was only 5 minutes away. At my door, he waited for me to answer. The first few times, the courtesy felt formal and sad. Eventually, it became ordinary. When he wanted something, I asked, do you want to see me or do you need the socket wrench? Both, he said once. Which came first? The wrench. Thank you for your honesty. He took the wrench and stayed for dinner. When I needed something, I practiced asking without turning it into a test. Ben carried my laundry upstairs after my knee became sore, but only after I asked. He offered to install a second railing. I said no twice, then accepted after nearly dropping a basket on step 14. The railing did not mean the apartment was unsafe or that he had been right about everything. It meant I preferred reaching the top with my dignity and clean towels intact. Tessa visited without casseroles. Sometimes she sat at the round table and complained about Ben, and I listened without agreeing, correcting, or carrying the complaint back to him. He put clamps in my serving drawer, she said one evening. It was briefly my serving drawer. Perhaps it resists authority. He also hung the copy. Where? On the shelf beside the workbench. Does it make the room look sad? Tessa gave me a small, crooked smile. No. It makes it look used. She had confronted Ben about the key to the suite. He had placed it on the kitchenette counter and told her he no longer needed it. The gesture did not undo his entering my room, but I was glad he had understood the key was part of what happened. Caroline called him herself. Their first conversation ended badly. Their second lasted an hour. During the third, Ben told her he was sorry for treating her goodbye with Paul as something she had stolen from him. Caroline apologized for trying to force him to speak before he was ready, then told him readiness had become an excuse for punishing everyone else. She reported all this to me afterward. Were you calling to talk to me? I asked, or to have me certify your apology. Talk to you. Good. Do you think I was too hard on him? That sounds like a question for Ben. This new version of you is irritating. She is still under construction. Denise claimed I was becoming intolerably balanced. She responded by increasing her own opinions to preserve the natural order. She and I continued our evening walks. My knee improved. Lila began leaving small repairs near the back room work table, with handwritten offers of flowers, sandwiches, or coffee. I accepted some and refused others. The work did not become a business, a calling, or a miraculous second life. It gave my hands something to do and made the narrow room smell like wood instead of cardboard. I repaired the one-winged bird last. The missing wing had never been carved. I could have tried to match the other, but copying Paul's work felt impossible and unnecessary. I carved a smaller wing with a different curve. The bird remained uneven. It could stand without rolling. I placed it beside his photograph. Sunday dinner resumed because I invited everyone. The first time I made stew and complained for 2 days about feeding 4 people in a kitchen designed for 1.5. The second time, Tessa brought food. The third time, Ben asked if he could cook. You know where I keep things? I asked. No. Do you know what you're making? Pot roast. Your wife doesn't eat mushrooms. Pot roast does not contain mushrooms. Her casserole did. That was an act of aggression. He arrived 2 hours early carrying groceries and his own knife. I let him into the apartment, then sat in Paul's chair while he discovered the limitations of my counter space. "Where's the large cutting board?" he asked. "Behind the stove." "Why? It fits. Where's the salt?" "In the cabinet." "Which cabinet?" "The one with salt." He looked over his shoulder. "Are you going to help? You wanted to cook. I assumed you would supervise. That is how family labor becomes invisible." He stared at me. Then he laughed. "Fine. I read a book while he cooked. It required great discipline not to comment when he cut the carrots too large. Once I saw him look toward Paul's photograph as though expecting support. "You're on your own," I said. "I didn't ask anything." "You did with your face." Tessa arrived with wine and the world's okayest mother-in-law mug wrapped in newspaper. "This was yours," she said. "It was in your kitchen before I moved. It had been yours spiritually. I washed it and used it for flowers. Caroline brought a pineapple upside-down cake. I bought it," she announced. "Coward," Ben said. "You ate floor pineapple." I was 12. 15, I corrected. We crowded around the round table. Ben's roast was tender. His carrots were too large but properly cooked, an outcome I kept to myself for almost 6 minutes. "Dad cut them smaller," I finally said. Silence touched the table. Ben looked at me. I added, "Then boiled them until they lost the will to live." Caroline laughed first. Tessa followed. Ben shook his head and served me another carrot. The photograph stood on the bookcase behind him. He had built its copy a simpler walnut frame and placed it beside his workbench, where he said it collected a fine layer of sawdust no matter how often he cleaned. After dinner, Caroline sliced the cake without dropping it. Tessa cleared plates. Ben tried to help, but I told him the cook was exempt. "No," he said. "That rule is how one person ends up doing everything." He carried dishes to the sink. While we ate cake, he looked at the photograph. What was he laughing at? "Who?" "Dad. In the picture." Caroline lowered her fork. "I thought I told you. You said you made a joke." "I don't remember the joke. I do," I said. They all looked at me. At the retirement dinner, Paul's supervisor gave a speech about how calm he was under pressure. Ben smiled already. "Dad?" "Exactly. Your father had spent the afternoon furious because the restaurant printed his name as Mr. Paul Murder on the place cards." Tessa choked on cake. "What?" Caroline said. "Mercer," I explained. "They meant Mercer." "Did we keep the card? Your father kept 6. Ben leaned back, laughing. For a moment, he looked so much like the photograph that the comparison rose instinctively. I let it pass through me without saying it. "What happened to the cards?" he asked. "Probably in one of the toolboxes. We need to find them. Not tonight." "Tell me something else, then. About your father?" "Yes." "Something I haven't heard." I looked at my son waiting across the table, not for judgment, instruction, or proof. Just a story. "All right," I said. The first Monday after he retired, Paul put on a tie and pretended to go to work because he didn't know how to tell me he was frightened. Ben's smile faded into attention. Behind him, his father kept laughing in the repaired walnut frame. "He drove to the grocery store parking lot," I continued. "He sat there for 3 hours. No one interrupted. And when he came home, I said, he claimed traffic had been terrible.